Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. He picked up a scattered chair from the floor, sitting down and remaining motionless for a long while. The thought that had once crossed his mind resurfaced once again. Is this the price you marked? Or could Karu's death be just the beginning? As Ritu sighed deeply, he remained unaware that the crisis was already quietly closing in. At the southwest corner of the camp, a special, isolated area had been set up. The purpose of this area was simple: it was where the bodies of the collected ninjas were stored. At that moment, Watanabe Karu's pitch-black, charred body was laid there. The ninja assigned to inspect the bodies did not notice that somewhere on her corpse was a peculiar symbol of unknown significance. Night soon fell, and the area around the morgue was completely deserted. Even the ninjas capable of catastrophic destruction generally preferred to avoid close proximity to a pile of corpses. Under the dark sky, with the autumn rain pattering down, the morgue, which should have been silent, suddenly emitted faint sounds. What is that smell? Kyosuke frowned, reluctantly putting on the mask he hadn't worn in a long time. It wasn't that he was ashamed, it was simply that the stench here was unbearable. After killing Watanabe Karu, he had sent his clan member to a safe location before quickly returning. Using spatial coordinates as a guide, he had successfully located the deeply hidden enemy stronghold. Since the enemy had traveled so far to pay him a visit, as the local ruler, it was only proper for him to extend a greeting. Watanabe Karu had been merely an appetizer. Tonight, Kyosuke intended to leave the enemy with an unforgettable memory. He raised his hand and crossed his fingers in front of him, and with several loud bangs, 5 shadow clones appeared beside him. Hey, I knew calling me out wouldn't mean anything good. The second clone rolled his eyes, casting a glance outside the camp. Don't say that. We all need to work together, right? The third clone habitually played the role of the peacemaker. Enough talk. Kyosuke waved his hand, signaling them to hurry up and carry out their tasks. So, what are you going to do? I'll stay here to cover you guys. If any danger arises, I'll just throw a bunch of kunai. Hey, really, thanks for that. We're all on the same side, so don't be so formal. Soon, the clones scattered, each heading to different parts of the camp to begin posting explosive tags, which were meant to signify celebration. When triggered all at once, it would surely be a magnificent display of fireworks. I am simply too hospitable. Kyosuke murmured with a slight pause, his gaze drifting towards the sky. The rain tonight is especially heavy. Boom. The deafening sound of thunder struck, awakening countless ninjas who had been peacefully lost in their dreams. As an apprentice of Lord Shaman, Munzman's mood could only be described as foul. Once, he had been at odds with Watanabe Karu, wishing countless times for that mad woman's untimely demise. Today, his wish was finally fulfilled, yet his mood had only darkened further. It was not that he had developed any feelings for her. No man, aside from a masochist, could ever love such a woman. Munzman was merely afraid. No, worried would be a more fitting word. The technique of human puppetry was something even Lord Shaman coveted, and Munzman too, could not hide his envy. Whoever mastered the human puppet's technique would wield an unimaginable power, and in the land of wind, no force could stand against them. When the time came, Lord Shaman would surely release the puppet-making techniques to the public, attracting a host of talented individuals to their cause. The problem, however, was that by doing so, they were provoking one of the most formidable forces in the ninja world. Uchiha. Was it truly worth it? Compared to others, Munzman possessed an exceptional sense of perspective. Even if they were to defeat the Uchiha, the Senju clan would be left unchecked, and when the Land of Fire completed its unification, the neighboring Land of Wind would undoubtedly become the primary target. He had already come up with a plausible excuse: they would use this invasion as the trigger. Sigh. Munzman walked out of the camp tent, intending to open the sluice gates to release the water, when a fleeting shadow caught his attention. Who's there? He called out, swiftly chasing after the figure. I am your father. Number 2 responded with an eye roll, raising a hand to form a seal. Before Munzman could make sense of the situation, a violent explosion suddenly tore through much of the camp. Boom. Looking up at the stormy night sky, where the thunder never ceased, Number 2 smiled lightly, and with a decisive gesture, dispelled the clone. Soon, the exposed information reached the original body. Of course, he didn't even need to look to know the situation. The camp was filled with the sound of exploding tags. If anyone wasn't prepared by now, the enemy might as well slit their own throats. Inside the commander's tent, Ritu pulled back the curtain in front of him and stepped outside into the heavy downpour. While others focused on the explosive tags, searching for traces of intruders, only he sensed something unusual in the air. Quickly, Ritu's gaze fixed on the thunder-filled sky. He was a master of magnet style, his control over it far surpassing the several wind kages of the future. Not only could he manipulate metal and sand, but he could also sense the electromagnetic fields present in the atmosphere. Through his sensitivity, Ritu could feel the incredible energy gathering within the thunderclouds. If it struck, much of the camp would be devastated. "It seems we have a distinguished guest," Ritu remarked, as he slowly rose from the ground, controlling his body with electromagnetic force. "Are you intending to strike with the power of nature's thunder?" he mused. "How coincidental, I too enjoy making use of it." With his right hand raised above his head, and under the control of his electromagnetic power, boundless lightning quickly gathered at his fingertips. At the same time, the strange beast hidden within the thunderclouds finally revealed itself. With eyes that seemed almost tangible in their ferocity, the thunderous Kirin locked its gaze on the enemy, letting out a silent roar. In a distant corner of the camp, Kyosuke's eyes were filled with suspicion and surprise. He had long known that the five Kages, the ones who would end the Sengoku era, possessed terrifying strength. He had assumed that this opponent would use golden sand or iron sand in battle, but he never imagined that the enemy had reached the level of controlling electromagnetic forces. Kyosuke originally planned to take advantage of the rainy weather and use his lightning style, Kirin, to heavily damage the enemy. But now, the thunder beast in the clouds is only half its usual size. Most of the electrical power has been redirected through magnet style, flowing into the enemy's hands. "This is quite a formidable opponent," Kyosuke said, his eyes filled with excitement in the face of such overwhelming pressure. With a single wave of his hand, the Kirin instantly descended from the sky, as though a divine punishment falling from the heavens. Ritu, however, showed no sign of concern. With a casual flick of his fingers, the electric pulse, already transformed into a lightning slurry, shot through the air. Magnet style, electromagnetic cannon. The lightning style, Kirin, which had performed extremely well since its inception, was completely wiped out from the middle with a single flick of a finger. "Do you really think you can avoid it in my magnetic field?" Ritu, floating in the air, slowly pointed in another direction. Boom. In less than a thousandth of a second, the electric pulse reached in front of Kyosuke. The speed was so fast that he didn't even have time to use the Flying Thunder God technique. Chapter 113, A Fierce Battle Amidst Thunder and Lightning. The camp that night was anything but calm. First came a barrage of explosive tags, startling everyone out of their wits, making them think the Uchiha army had launched an attack. Then came the roar of thunder, and with it, the arrival of Kirin. Its overwhelming power made every ninja experience the fear of death. Finally, Lord Ritu appeared. With a single electromagnetic cannon, he obliterated Kirin and nearly struck down the hidden enemy lurking in the dense mist from hundreds of meters away. In mere minutes, the roller coaster of events left everyone's hearts pounding. "Not dead yet?" Ritu murmured, his expression showing a faint surprise. His electromagnetic senses told him there was still a violent energy fluctuation within the thick fog. The intruder was far from defeated. "Interesting." He snapped his fingers softly, and a large amount of black iron sand surged from the ground, forming massive iron wings behind him. While the electromagnetic field enabled him to levitate, it lacked agility. These iron wings, however, provided unmatched flexibility and precision. As the man hailed as the strongest, Ritu's abilities would serve as the blueprint for generations of Kazekage to come. Iron sand, gold dust, or mere sand. None could rival the terror of his electromagnetic field. Flight, an extremely rare ability in the shinobi world, was as simple to him as raising a hand. For this alone, Ritu's name was enough to make waves across the five great nations. As the fog below gradually dissipated, a battered figure emerged. A skeletal structure of dark golden hue, glaring against the night. Ugh! With a violent cough, Kyosuke spat out a mouthful of blood. Wiping the corner of his mouth, he slowly rose from his half-kneeling posture. The enemy's abilities were truly terrifying, utterly unfamiliar to him. Had he not immediately activated the first stage of Susanoo, he might have already gone to join the Sage of Six Paths. Even now, Kyosuke couldn't figure out how his opponent had located him so quickly. Not even the Byakugan could have pinpointed his position with such speed. Moreover, the strange lightning-style technique was entirely foreign, something he had never seen before. Not even in the manga he'd read in his previous life. Today's battle had given Kyosuke a vivid and painful lesson. Awakening the Mengekyo Sharingan did not mean invincibility. The shinobi world harbored countless mysterious and dangerous abilities. Without caution, He could easily find himself waiting to be revived by summoning, impure world reincarnation. Given how early the current timeline is, whether anyone in the future would even be able to resurrect him with summoning, impure world reincarnation remains uncertain. Adversity breeds vigilance, while complacency leads to ruin. Kyosuke knew he had to remain alert and prepared. Many things in this world allow no second chances. Very well, impressive indeed. Lifting his head, Kyosuke locked his gaze on the man standing under the night sky. With a deep breath, he released the curse mark, and a pair of fleshy wings resembling hands extended from his back. With a few slow flaps, he rose to the same height as his opponent. His scarlet eyes glowed fiercely, and the fading Susanoo around him suddenly solidified. What had been mere skeletal remains grew muscle and sinew, eventually donning a cloak of dark golden chakra. Susanoo, second form. Though this form of Susanoo could not yet fly, it mattered little. As long as he, the user, could take to the skies, it was enough. He knew magnet style could manipulate sand and stone, allowing it to bypass Susanoo's defenses from beneath. Both Sasuke and Madara had fallen victim to such tactics. Kyosuke would not repeat their mistakes. As he gazed at the dark golden giant hovering in midair, Ritu's expression grew increasingly serious. He realized that the intruder might be even more formidable than he had initially anticipated. After a brief moment of contemplation, Ritu decided to speak, testing the waters before making his next move. "Who are you?" "Kyosuke Uchiha." Kyosuke responded, offering a certain degree of respect when facing an opponent capable of threatening him. Kyosuke. The name triggered a flood of memories in Ritu's mind. As if piecing together a puzzle, he asked in a low voice. "Was Kaoru killed by you?" "That woman? Impressive that you managed to identify her." Kyosuke admitted without hesitation. Today, his objective was not only to eliminate Watanabe Kaoru but also to make many enemies pay with their lives for the fallen members of the Uchiha clan. The straightforwardness of Kyosuke's answer surprised Ritu slightly, but he could also sense the absolute determination emanating from his adversary. Unfortunately, as long as he was here, no one would be allowed to wreak havoc. Boom. Thunder roared, the ground quaked, and electromagnetic forces rippled through the air, making the very world tremble. Call of lightning. Ritu raised his right hand, and several bolts of lightning gathered furiously in his palm, eventually coalescing into a spear of blinding blue-white light. Then, he pointed the spear downward. In an instant, vast stretches of soil turned to dust, gathering into a massive wave of golden sand, which rapidly gathered and surged toward the sky. Magnet-style, flowing sand torrent. In the blink of an eye, Kyosuke's stark golden Susanoo was engulfed by the cascading ocean of sand. Everywhere he looked, there was nothing but sand, save for the thunderclouds crackling with lightning above. Even directly beneath him, countless sharp blades of sand lay in wait. Seeing this, Kyosuke flapped his wings rapidly, charging straight toward the enemy concealed within the sea of sand. As for the terrifying waves of sand surrounding him. Reversal. With the activation of his right eye's Mengekyo ability, a clear path instantly appeared between him and his opponent, completely sweeping away the sand in his way. Wide-area ninjutsu often lacked precision in its destructive power. For Kyosuke, using reversal made things easier. He only needed to clear a single section of the sandstorm. In Ritu's shocked gaze, the space between them was abruptly cleared, as if the sand had retreated to open a direct path for Kyosuke's advance. Kyosuke retaliated immediately. The Yasaka Magatama formed in his hands, launching 3 consecutive strikes, all of which hit their mark. More precisely, they struck the lightning spear in Ritu's hand. Ritu retreated, and Kyosuke pursued. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had left the sandstorm behind. On the ground below, the crowd could only look up at the battle in the sky as though watching a spectacle. It wasn't just ordinary ninjas. Even the future second Kazekage, Shaman, was powerless to intervene in this fight. After all, he couldn't fly. As for his ability to control sand, Ritu had already proven that large-scale sandstorms had little effect on Kyosuke. Damn it! Shaman cursed, slamming his fist into the side of a nearby tent. He despised himself for not mastering the puppet technique sooner. If only he had perfected it, they wouldn't be forced to stand by helplessly while Lord Ritu fought alone. In the distance, there were still some defiant ninjas attempting to launch ninjutsu into the sky, or even attempting to control their puppets to rise into the air. Unfortunately, their altitude was far from enough. Nowhere near sufficient. Under the thunderous night sky, Ritu's expression grew increasingly serious. To this moment, he still couldn't understand why the sandstorm had mysteriously dispersed. The problem was that the relentless enemy gave him no time to ponder. Helpless, he had no choice but to push his chakra to its limits, continuously summoning electromagnetic pulses to strike down his foes. This technique was indeed terrifying, even the second form of Susanoo couldn't endure it with sheer defense alone. What made it worse was its incredible speed and its eerily unavoidable nature. Even with the transformed Suzunu's sword of Kusanagi, Kyosuke couldn't close the distance to his opponent. I can't engage in a protracted battle with him. The prolonged use of these techniques had already placed a great strain on Kyosuke's body. Suzunu combined with the cursed seal was almost like opening the 8 gates of death. But, he could not retreat yet. Killing Watanabe Kaoru alone wasn't enough. Only by eliminating this man would the Southern Army have a real chance of defeating the enemy. There's no other choice. He muttered softly, and once again, the dark golden Suzuno underwent a noticeable transformation. Chapter 114, Suzuno's third form, half-body armored for an ordinary ninja. The two figures in the sky were as powerful as gods. Lord Ritu was already regarded as the strongest in the eyes of many in the Land of Wind. However, no one had anticipated that the enemy attacking tonight would be so powerful and fearsome. Wait, what did Lord Shaman say just now? Kyosuke Uchiha. Unknowingly, many had etched that name into their hearts. An existence that could stand side by side with Lord Ritu himself. In the sky, Kyosuke was still struggling to fend off the enemy's electromagnetic cannon. Since awakening the Mengekyo Sharingan, he had never faced such an intense battle. Without the motivation from negative emotions, he could only rely on chakra to force his Suzuno to evolve. Fortunately, I have the cursed seal. By using diluted natural energy, I can ensure the completion of Suzuno's third form. As for the consequences of forcing this power, at this moment, Kyosuke could no longer afford to care. Soon, the broken flesh was restored, and the dark golden skeleton was once again covered with its outer layer. Under the watchful gaze of the enemy, a phantom armor suddenly appeared, wrapping around the Suzuno like the mouth of a giant beast. Suzuno, third form. With the addition of the Karasun armor, Suzuno's defense was drastically increased. This form of Suzuno was immensely powerful, but its chakra consumption also increased greatly, making it highly unstable. Most regular Mengekyo Sharingan users would struggle to maintain the third form for long periods. In the original story, the already ailing Itachi Uchiha used his life force to activate this form. He forced his body to seal Orochimaru, only to die moments later in front of Sasuke. Sasuke was the same. The intense battle with Denzo had caused a significant depletion of his ocular power, but he stubbornly activated the third stage through his negative emotions. The result? Before even making a move, he blinded himself. Looking at the current situation, Kyosuke had already embarked on the dangerous path of greatly exhausting his ocular power. Ah! A suppressed roar erupted from him as he completed the essential evolution of his Suzuno. In his right hand, he wielded the indestructible Phantom Kusanagi sword, while in his left hand, he formed a phantom shield, preparing to use it to block the enemy's electromagnetic cannon. Boom! Bright lightning streaked across the night sky. Realizing the situation was dire, Ritu finally launched the thunder spear in his hand. However, its power was no longer enough to penetrate the shield held by Suzuno. Enduring the searing pain coursing through his body, Kyosuke charged towards the enemy, Suzuno's sword raised high, giving the opponent no chance to evade. Seeing this, the future first Kazekage gritted his teeth, and with a surge of electromagnetic force, a power far greater than the previous violent lightning began to gather. Brat, you are still 100 years too early to defeat me. Magnet style, super electromagnetic cannon. A thick electrical current, resembling a laser, struck Kyosuke's Suzuno directly. The immense impact caused his slash to miss the target. However, before the smile on the enemy's lips could even fade, the Yasaka Magatama, already charged and ready, shot out with tremendous force. Bang! The Magatama exploded, and the enemy, drenched in blood, fell from the sky. Had it not been for the layer of iron sand on his body, this strike would have been enough to kill Ritu on the spot. Even now, his injuries were grave, and he would need at least a month to recover fully. By the time Ritu was fully healed, the Land of Wind forces would have already been defeated. After all, their numbers were small, with most left behind to defend the homeland, which also had to be protected against hostile forces. Wu Kyosuke's blood spurted out and a feeling of suffocation suddenly surged into his heart. But he knew that he couldn't lose consciousness now, otherwise, without the enemy's intervention, the fall from such a height alone would be enough to kill him. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he quickly formed hand signs and lightly pressed his hand against the empty space beside him. Ninja art, summoning technique. With a loud bang, smoke erupted, and the figure of Hide appeared in the air. Lord Kyosuke, big. Seeing the rapidly approaching ground, Hide trembled, its lips quivering in fear. Not bothering to speak with it, Kyosuke pried open the snake's mouth and crawled inside. If you don't want to die, then hurry up and dispel the summoning. Oh, just a second before hitting the ground, Hide finally dispelled the summoning on its own. Together with Kyosuke inside it, both were returned to the Richi cave. Ah yes, It's the familiar ceiling. After some time, Kyosuke found himself once again submerged in the snake pond of Orochi Cave. Nearby, Togreheim was lazily flicking a small leather whip at a smooth round stone. It seemed like she was practicing something. Kyosuke coughed lightly, a bad feeling rising in his heart. The result was as expected. He once again fell victim to the whip training of the Divine Maiden. After all, he was always wounded, and once he sought her help, he had to follow her rules. Of course, he also took the opportunity to review the process of practicing senjutsu, although his current body was not yet capable of handling it. However, one day, he would grow, and the power of senjutsu was undoubtedly among the highest forms of strength. It could never hurt to learn more. On the other hand, after losing two key commanders in succession, the invaders from the Land of Wind were no longer as brave as they had been before. Watanabe Kaoru was brutally killed, and their leader, Ritu, was severely wounded and unlikely to recover. The second-generation shaman, who had not yet fully grown, was insufficient to resist the Southern Legion's offensive. Soon, the invaders were driven out of the border, and after half a month of stalemate, the Land of Wind was the first to announce a retreat. The reason was simple: Ritu had not yet recovered, and Kyosuke Uchiha had reappeared on the battlefield. Thinking back to that night, his figure, like that of a god, who else besides Ritu would have the confidence to face such a monster? In any case, the agreement had been mostly fulfilled, so retreating now wouldn't violate the promise made earlier. At the border, Ritu gazed at the territory of the Land of Fire, unable to regain his senses for a long time. "My lord." Beside him, Shaman seemed hesitant to speak. "Let's go." Without a word, he silently turned around, his soft muttering slipping past unnoticed by anyone around him. "One day, this land will kneel before my feet." The Southern Legion of the Uchiha won a great victory, driving the invaders back to the Land of Wind. This news quickly spread in all directions, somewhat restoring the morale in the previously unfavorable situation. That's right, even with the combined forces of the Hyuga and Uchiha, they were beginning to show signs of being unable to resist. The enemy's puppet technique was simply too strong, a perfect example of growing stronger the longer they fought. So far, many Uchiha clan members have already become puppets of the enemy, raising the blade against their former comrades and families. Had it not been for the strength of Hashirama's wood style, which single-handedly covered a third of the war's devastation, the entire front line might have already collapsed. Driven to desperation, Tajima finally made up his mind. He was going to execute a decapitation plan. Little did he know, this was precisely the scene some people were hoping for. The current Hotsutsuki Sujito was no longer the same as before. He had remained still all this time, just to lure the ignorant into his trap. Sometimes, the roles of hunter and prey could be so blurred. A single misstep, and the identities of the two could easily be switched. Chapter 115, Redeeming the Basic Sage Body. In the Southern Army's camp, Kyosuke lay in his bed, still in a state of drowsy rest. Outside the tent, two clan members were quietly conversing, reflecting on the arduous battle they had just endured. "Sigh, we truly owe everything to Lord Kyosuke. Without him, there's no way the enemy would have retreated so quickly." Indeed. Despite his severe injuries, he forced himself to the battlefield, pushing through the pain. You're right. It was worth it though. Those cowards looked utterly terrified when they saw him. Unfortunately, it seems Lord Kyosuke's condition has worsened as a result. Their voices were barely above a whisper, like a secretive exchange of murmured words. Even so, the conversation still reached the ears of someone who had been eavesdropping with malicious intent. So that's how it is. A shadowy figure deep underground muttered to itself, breaking into a sinister chuckle. He, I was wondering how his injuries healed so quickly. It turns out he's just putting on an act. The Mangekyo Sharingan is powerful, but using it like that? He's practically digging his own grave. Well, if he's destined to fall anyway, why not let me give him a little push? Moments later, the figure stealthily infiltrated Kyosuke's tent. Silent as a ghost, it slipped past the nearby guards, who failed to notice a thing. As the pale, deathly hand was about to touch its target, Kyosuke's eyes suddenly snapped open. Without hesitation, a Chidori sharp spear tore through the intruder's body in a flash of lightning. "I've been waiting for you," Kyosuke said coldly. "You?" The white Zetsu clone's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible. Your injuries were supposed to be severe. How could you have recovered so quickly?" While others might not understand, White Zetsu, a being created in the ancient era and a collaborator with Black Zetsu, knew all too well the power and side effects of the Mangekyo Sharingan. By its estimation, Kyosuke should have either gone blind or at least suffered a significant reduction in his ocular powers. Staying bedridden for 10 days or more should have been inevitable. There was no way someone in his condition could feign being seriously injured just to set up this trap. "Can't figure it out, huh? Idiot." Kyosuke spat as he stared disdainfully at White Zetsu. In truth, Kyosuke had already fully recovered from his injuries. His decision to appear on the battlefield was a deliberate strategy, meant to bait the enemy commanders into making a move against him. To his surprise, the enemy had been cautious enough to avoid the trap, retreating without hesitation. With no other option, Kyosuke redirected his efforts, aiming to draw out Black Zetsu, that ancient schemer. This can't be. What exactly did you? White Zetsu's clone was still visibly shaken. Kyosuke frowned and asked a few questions, but as his patience wore thin, he decided to use Genjutsu to force it to reveal the truth. However, just as he was about to delve deeper, Kyosuke's expression changed abruptly. Sensing danger, he swiftly retreated from the tent, taking the two guards outside with him. Barely a moment later, White Zetsu's clone detonated like a balloon, erupting in a sudden explosion. So it even has a self-destruct mechanism. Black Zetsu, you really are rotten to the core. Kyosuke muttered with a faint sneer before adding. Oh, right. You don't actually have bones, do you? Having failed yet again in his attempts to trap the elusive Black Zetsu, Kyosuke couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. After reassuring the shaken guards, Kyosuke relocated to another tent and laid down, resuming his rest. In truth, White Zetsu's guess was not entirely wrong. Normally, he should still be in a severely injured state. The reason he appeared to be so active and seemingly recovered was actually due to another item he had exchanged for. Beginner Sage Body, cost 20,000 points. After defeating Watanabe Korra, his points had risen to around 13,000. Then, in the Rainy battle, the explosion talismans added another 7,000 points to his total. With this, he was able to exchange for the Beginner Sage Body. Beginner, 20,000 points, Intermediate, 50,000 points, Advanced, 100,000 points, Ultimate, 200,000 points. The Sage Body was different from other exchanges. It could not be upgraded in one go. It had to start from the beginner level and be enhanced step by step. At this point, Kyosuke's strength was roughly at the level of Naruto when he was young. His chakra reserves skyrocketed, his self-healing speed increased drastically, but his physical strength and speed didn't see any noticeable gains. His injuries had recovered by about 60%, mostly due to the effects of the Sage Body. Without it, it was still uncertain if he could even get out of bed. Upon activating the Sage Body, his chakra reserves instantly surged, reaching the level comparable to Kage-level powerhouse. If he activated the curse mark mode, his chakra would increase even further, possibly reaching mid-Kage levels. Once one's strength reaches Kage level, the gap between them and others of the same rank could be enormous, practically a world of difference. At the Super Kage and Six Paths levels, the gap would grow even wider, potentially resulting in an overwhelming superiority. All in all, any increase in power was a good thing. However, Kyosuke couldn't help but feel frustrated by his body's continued limitations at the Jonin level. Before activating the Sage Body, his physical strength had been stuck at the entry-level Jonin rank for over a year. Now, he had finally jumped to the peak of Jonin, a significant improvement, but still far behind in comparison to his other abilities. Ugh, it's all because of my age. Can't blame me for that. Of course, these were the obvious improvements. The most significant benefit to him wasn't the increase in chakra, but the Sage Body's ability to nourish his Sharingan. After completing the exchange, the gradually declining limit of his ocular power finally stopped worsening. As he began to adapt to his body's energy, Kyosuke was pleasantly surprised to find that the upper limit of his Mangekyo Sharingan's power was slowly rising again. The recovery was incredibly slow, but it meant that he no longer had to worry about going blind. One word, the exchange for the Sage Body was truly worth it. The fusion of the Uchiha and Senju powers was, without a doubt, the strongest bloodline in the world of Naruto. Looking up at the snowflakes drifting outside, Kyosuke realized that winter had arrived once again. Let's see, I've been in the Naruto world for almost 5 years now. Many times, Kyosuke felt like his past life had been nothing more than a dream. Apart from the memories of the plot, everything else had gradually become blurry. A peaceful Ear's life could never compare to the relentless warfare of the ninja world. His injuries would take a few more days to fully heal. Not being able to trap Black Zetsu was a regret he couldn't shake. With these matters settled, it's time to begin developing the yin-yang chakra. When I hold the black rod, you'll see what it truly means to be afraid. A few days quickly passed, and Kyosuke, concerned with the main battlefield, did not delay. He quickly bid farewell to Elder Rei Uchiha and set off. On the other side, Tajima began his decapitation plan. Due to his lack of trust in the Senju, he chose not to bring along the Senju brothers with him. In truth, had it not been for Madara's persistent persuasion, Tajima would have already attempted to secretly harm the young Senju clan leader. He could tolerate many things, but Tajima could not bear the thought of anyone surpassing his two sons. Whether it was Kyosuke or Hashirama, both were thorns in his side, an annoyance he could not overlook. Thus, when Kyosuke returned, what he saw was the Senju brothers being completely isolated by the entire Uchiha clan. Chapter 116, The Failed Assassination Plan. Kyosuke takes action at the Uchiha frontline camp, in the southern corner. Here, your food for today. A logistics officer, rude and dismissive, tossed the food onto the table. At this, Obirama's eyes flashed with murderous intent. These people were incredibly disrespectful. He and his older brother had come to offer their support, yet this was how they were treated. His judgment had been correct, the Uchiha truly were a naturally evil clan. They should have listened to their father back then, letting the Uchiha perish with their enemies. Big brother. Unable to endure any longer, Tobirama stood up, his intense killing intent making the food delivery officer's legs tremble with fear. You. What do you want? Don't do anything rash. The officer stammered, clearly acting on Tajima's orders. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so brazen in his targeting. But fortunately, not all Uchiha bore hostility toward the two brothers. Over the course of the month-long battle, countless ninjas had been saved by Hashirama. In the end, Hashirama's efforts had indeed helped to ease the relations between the two clans. But alas, the timing was wrong. Perhaps only when he became the leader of the Senju clan could he truly change the situation from the root. Obirama. Hashirama said, holding his younger brother's shoulder, ready to speak, when his eyes suddenly lit up with joy. Kyosuke, you're finally back. Standing at the door was none other than Kyosuke, who had returned from the Southern Border Legion. He nodded at the two brothers, then fixed a cold, indifferent gaze on the logistics officer. Legion Commander. The officer's eyes darted around nervously, clearly wishing to flee immediately. However, the only exit was blocked by Kyosuke, leaving him with nowhere to run. Fixing his gaze on the officer's fearful expression, Kyosuke expressionlessly raised his right hand. Slap. With a sharp sound, a few teeth flew out of the officer's mouth. Ignoring the officer's screams, like a pig being slaughtered, Kyosuke raised his hand again and slapped him even harder. Stop, stop. I was wrong, I'm just a small man, confused, please spare me, my lord. You worthless sycophant. Kyosuke ordered without turning his head. Take him and throw him to the front lines. Let him experience firsthand what it's like to have no control over life or death. Yes, sir. Maya, who had been waiting outside, immediately dragged the man away. Kyosuke glanced at the food on the table, his disgust evident, and knocked the plate over. He forcefully pulled the brothers to his own camp. Here, he was the true ruler. The clan leader's orders and attitude held no weight. Just bear with it for a little while. Kyosuke said with a smile, addressing the two of them. Forget about that useless fool, Tajima. He'll die in the streets sooner or later. Come, let's have a drink first. Hashirama casts a nervous glance around, fearing that Tajima might suddenly appear from somewhere. As for Kyosuke, he paid no mind. Black Zetsu had forced him to face the large army of the Land of Wind, and it was highly likely that he would have to deal with Tajima sooner rather than later. He had just heard that the old fool had gone off to carry out an assassination mission, and it was almost certain he wouldn't survive it. The last time they met, Otsutsuki Sujito had already mastered the abilities of attraction and repulsion. Essentially, he had become a living version of the Six Paths Pain. His combat strength might not be the strongest, but his ability to survive was definitely top tier. He was not someone Tajima could just kill on a whim. However, Tajima was still the clan leader, and Kyosuke felt it was only right for him to personally send him off. At the peak of clan leader level, the rewards would certainly be great. How could he let such an opportunity slip by without taking action? Of course, he couldn't openly launch an attack, so he had to drag the Senju brothers out for a drink. Thinking of this, Kyosuke raised his glass to the two of them and said, "Come on, let's drink to our brother Hashirama dreams." As soon as the words left his mouth, Hashirama's eyes welled up with tears, thinking that all his efforts had been worth it. Yes, for our dreams, cheers. Obirama, silently watching the two, found Kyosuke's enthusiasm a bit strange. It seemed almost excessive. How could anyone imagine that just a month ago, the two had been fighting desperately against each other? But considering the current situation, Obirama could understand Kyosuke's change in attitude. After this battle, the Uchiha will surely be severely weakened. Then, the Land of Fire will have no power left to stop the Senju. Picking up his wine glass, Tobirama, in a cheerful mood, also joined the drinking party. He couldn't match Kyosuke in a fight, but could he be beaten at drinking? Don't underestimate the Senju clan's constitution, you evil Uchiha bastard. The small feast lasted for 3 full hours before it came to an end. As for whether it was appropriate to drink before a battle, no one in the Uchiha clan dared to question it. Age was no concern either. None of them could be judged by normal standards. I'm telling you, I am going to defeat you one day sooner or later. Flying Thunder God, I'm about to puke. Obirama, who had started vomiting, was left behind as Kyosuke, with Maya's help, stumbled back to his tent. Don't let anyone disturb me. Kyosuke mumbled hazily, instructing Maya to have someone guard the camp entrance. Once his subordinate left, he immediately sat up, shaking off any signs of drunkenness. After waiting silently for a while, suddenly, a figure quietly slipped into the tent. Secret Ninja Number 1, reporting, Lord. This man appeared entirely ordinary, much like many other Uchiha members. But in reality, he was one of the 3 secret ninjas trained by Kyosuke. The first secret ninja was responsible for monitoring the various matters within the clan. The second secret ninja was tasked with setting up an intelligence network. The third secret ninja had special missions and had been undercover for several years. He was never one for passive defense. When he did something, it was only when he had complete certainty. The assassination of Tajima had long been part of the plan, and now, even if the situation changed, he could still respond calmly. Taking the tools his subordinates had prepared, Kyosuke nodded and disappeared from the camp. Seeing this, the first secret ninja used a transformation technique, changing into Kyosuke's likeness and lay on the bed. Apart from him, no one knew of Kyosuke's departure. To the southwest of the Land of Fire, near the border region, boom, boom, boom. The terrifying sounds of explosions echoed repeatedly, as countless puppet soldiers pursued the 2 brothers who were fleeing below. Damn it! Izuna gritted his teeth, constantly using fire-style ninjutsu to delay their pursuers. Beside him, his older brother, Madara Uchiha, said nothing. His expression was dark and brooding. The assassination plan had failed, and the enemy's strength far exceeded what anyone had expected. Even the 2 brothers had been forced to separate from their father. At this moment, neither side had time to worry about the other. For some unknown reason, an ominous feeling suddenly rose within Madara's heart. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Looking at Izuna, who seemed slightly flustered, Madara swore quietly to himself that no matter what, he would protect his younger brother's safety. Even if it meant dying. Chapter 117, Clan Patriarch, Long Time No See. Within the hastily constructed base, Otsutsuki Sujito surveyed the ground littered with corpses and let out a cold laugh. That guy's information was indeed accurate. It's a pity I couldn't capture Tajima Uchiha. He walked to a breach in the wall, gazing at the scene outside as he murmured to himself. With the plan progressing to this point, it's about halfway to success. Once the Uchiha are dealt with, the Senju clan will be next. Ancestor Hamura, your decision back then was indeed correct. The world created by the Sage of 6 Paths doesn't deserve to continue existing. For so many years, I was the one blinded by obsession. As he spoke, his gaze gradually filled with hatred. Clearly, the desire to destroy the shinobi world wasn't solely about fulfilling his ancestors' wishes. More than anything, he sought revenge for his son. Uchiha, Hyuga, you will pay the price for your actions. And it begins with your patriarchs. The decapitation squad had fled in haste, but Otsutsuki Sujito had no intention of letting them go so easily. Tajima was as good as dead. As for those 2 brothers, he would spare them for now as per the instructions he had received. In the end, they will all meet their demise, one after another. There's no need to act hastily for now. 15 kilometers west of the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rain. In the dense forest, an army of human puppets surged forward, moving like an unstoppable wave. At the front, the disheveled Tajima Uchiha fled in desperation, all the while dodging the green energy bullets fired at him from behind. The once proud leader of the Uchiha clan had been reduced to such a state. It would not be an exaggeration to describe him as a stray dog. Almost there. Once I reach the border, I can meet up with the reinforcements. Gripping the katana in his hand tightly, Tajima charged ahead with reckless determination, paying no mind to the consequences. Although his speed was impressive, it still couldn't compare to the flying capabilities of the human puppets. A barrage of green energy bullets rained down, forcing Tajima to turn back and confront the enemy head-on. A flurry of flashing blades and clashing steel allowed Tajima to eliminate more than 30 puppets. However, an even greater number of pursuers had already surrounded him completely. At the command of several puppet masters, an overwhelming barrage of energy bullets rained down in an instant, completely engulfing the figure of the Uchiha Patriarch. Yet, the target they had been relentlessly chasing for so long turned out to be nothing more than a shadow clone. 30 kilometers north of the scene of the battlefield. As the memories from the shadow clone transmitted back to him, Tajima brushed aside the grass covering his hiding spot and climbed out from the concealed pit with a cold smile. A bunch of fools. Still, that Brath's shadow clone technique is undeniably useful. The cunning Tajima had even managed to steal the Chidori, let alone Kyosuke's shadow clone technique, which had never been closely guarded. With his deep understanding of ninjutsu, combined with the Sharingan's assistance, replicating the shadow clone technique had been a simple task for him. Unexpectedly, this technique saved his life today. After quickly determining the direction, Tajima immediately set off northward, confident that no one would anticipate him taking such a wide detour. Despite the failure of the decapitation mission, he had successfully used the lives of his loyal subordinates to execute a shadow clone technique that misled the pursuers. Due to the failure of the decapitation mission, he resorted to using the lives of his most trusted subordinates, sacrificing them in order to successfully perform the shadow clone technique. This tactic effectively confused the pursuers, leading them away from his true location. It wasn't just the puppet masters who were fooled. Even the Zetsu that had been secretly observing from the shadows was left bewildered. What just happened? Staring at the dissipating white smoke of the shadow clone, Zetsu felt its teeth clench in frustration. Fortunately, White Zetsu's scouting abilities were unmatched. With enough time, it was confident it could locate its target again. Before long, while it still hadn't found Tajima's trail, it stumbled upon an unexpected discovery. It's him. White Zetsu blinked in surprise and immediately relayed the information to Black Zetsu through their shared connection. Soon, a new command arrived: abandon the original plan and instead guide the newcomer toward Tajima's location. Hey, this is going to be interesting. Deep within the forest, a figure cloaked in black and wearing a nuna mask was advancing swiftly. This figure was none other than Kyosuke, who had been relentlessly pursuing Tajima all the way. However, aside from the scattered remains of puppets all over the ground, he had yet to find any trace of Tajima. If I'd known, I would have exchanged points for a sensory-type ability earlier. Kyosuke sighed. Yet, in his current penniless state, he didn't even have enough points to redeem a basic transformation technique, let alone something useful. As he silently regretted his situation, something unusual suddenly caught his attention. After a moment of hesitation, Kyosuke decided to investigate. Whether it was Tajima or not, he needed to find out. This pursuit took him over 10 kilometers. Each time he considered giving up, the trail became more precise, pointing him toward a specific location. At last, his efforts paid off. He finally spotted 2 puppet masters from the Hidden Moon Village clan in front of him. A little farther ahead was the figure he had been chasing. None other than his dear patriarch, Tajima, fleeing for his life. Finally found you. With a burst of the teleportation jutsu, Kyosuke launched a near-silent assault, swiftly eliminating the 2 puppet masters. He quickly formed a series of hand seals, and a roaring fire-style, great fireball shot forward, filling the space in front of Tajima Uchiha with intense flames. Dearest patriarch, long time no see. Kyosuke remarked, his tone dripping with sarcasm as he approached. In the distance, White Zetsu slowly emerged from the ground. Its eyes glinted slightly, as if using some method to record the scene unfolding before it. The show is about to begin. On the other hand, Madara Uchiha had finally shaken off his pursuers. After a desperate battle within the base, he had managed to push his body beyond its limits, and at this moment, his body exuding an overwhelming, terrifying aura. This feeling, one that Izuna had only ever sensed in a few of the clan's strongest members, was something he had never imagined his older brother would reach after that grueling fight. The Uchiha clan was unique in that a surge of negative emotions could dramatically alter the chakra of the user. With their father injured and his younger brother in immediate danger, the 2 most important people in Madara's life were both at risk. In that moment, his mind was almost consumed by negative emotions. When he regained his senses, he had already used an explosive surge of chakra to temporarily repel the enemies. For now, Izuna was safe, but it all depended on whether their father would remain unharmed. Looking at his breathless younger brother, Madara gritted his teeth and decided to meet up with the reinforcement squad first. After ensuring Izuna's safety, he planned to return and search for his father's whereabouts. Father is strong, there are few who can match him. At the very least, he should have a good chance of escaping. While deep in thought, Madara sensed a faint disturbance behind them. Fearing pursuers, he immediately urged his brother to hurry. Brother, Izuna said, looking back with some concern. Father won't be in any danger, will he? Clearly, he was also concerned about their father's safety. Though Tajima had a harsh personality, he was still the father of both brothers, the person closest to them. Normally, this wouldn't matter as much, but now, Izuna fully realized how important their father truly was. Not just Izuna. Madara himself couldn't bear to imagine the consequences if something were to happen to their father. Suppressing the rising unease in his chest, Madara smiled at his brother and gently reassured him. Don't worry, father will be fine. At the same time, he silently whispered to himself. Whoever dares to harm father, I, Madara Uchiha, will make him pay with his life. Chapter 118. What's this unbelievable surprise? In the forest, the sound of blades clashing echoed through the air. That guy. Tajima's gaze darkened as he continued to press the figure in the cloak with relentless attacks. No matter who the opponent was, he couldn't afford to waste any more time here. Otherwise, if he alerted the enemy, the consequences would be disastrous. However, his opponent seemed to be aware of his strength, avoiding direct contact unless absolutely necessary. The figure's slightly odd movements seemed to be assessing his condition. Evaluating whether it's worth revealing his identity? The sly Tajima instantly saw through the opponent's thoughts. His guess was indeed correct. Despite his weakened state, as a peak-level clan leader, Tajima was still a formidable opponent. With just the current probing attacks, Kyosuke had to maintain his cursed seal state to be able to confront him. Otherwise, he would have no choice but to activate his Susanoo to withstand those incredibly sharp slashes. Old bastard, your skills are indeed formidable. Kyosuke raised his Kusanagi sword to block the violent chakra-infused slashes from his opponent. Even with all his strength, Kyosuke's body was still pushed 3 meters backward uncontrollably. Seeing this, Tajima raised one hand, releasing a burst of flames while throwing a dozen shuriken. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Shuriken Jutsu. This technique is based on the use of Phoenix Fire, with the flames wrapping around the flying shuriken. Its power remains unchanged, while allowing the ability to be controlled with ease, making it an advanced fire-style jutsu that only the Uchiha clan can master. If he wasn't careful, the fiery shuriken would surround him completely. While Kyosuke had the ability to endure Tajima's attack, it would inevitably expose his identity. Looks like it's not just raw strength that matters, my battle experience needs improvement as well. Beneath the black cloak, brilliant blue-white lightning suddenly surged. With a single move of Chidori, Kyosuke successfully blocked all the Phoenix Flower shuriken. Of course, his identity was now completely exposed. It's you. Tajima was stunned. He hadn't found a chance to attack Kyosuke yet, so how could this brat have the guts to come and cause trouble for him? Did he really think that just because he had awakened his Mengekyo Sharingan, he now had the strength to challenge him? How foolish. Surprised? Kyosuke smiled slightly, his eyes sharp as he stared at Tajima, his killing intent surging within him. Good, very good. Tajima waved his katana lightly, a cruel grin spreading across his face, as though he were about to devour Kyosuke whole. Daring to attack the clan leader, Kyosuke Uchiha, I now officially expel you from the clan. Ah, yes, yes, yes. Kyosuke casually tapped his ear, giving a seemingly indifferent laugh. You can say whatever you like, my dear clan leader. The premise is that you survive from my hands today. Before the words even finished, 2 small silver coins, one from an older man and the other from a younger one, shot toward each other simultaneously. Despicable. Shameless old fool. Along with their sneak attack, the 2 men also didn't forget to hurl verbal insults at each other. Facing Kyosuke's Chidori sharp spear, Tajima crossed his blade and, without hesitation, slashed down directly with one stroke. Uchiha style, Thorn Flash. A streak of white light whistled through the air, shattering the thunder blade while still carrying enough force to strike Kyosuke. In the end, the blow was successfully blocked by the ribs of Susanoo. So this is Susanoo. Tajima muttered, his eyes lighting up. He began to calculate whether he could seize the Mengekyo Sharingan from the brat. Even if he couldn't use it himself, he could give it to his 2 sons as a weapon. With that thought in mind, he slowly extended his hand and forcefully ran it along the blade. In an instant, intense flames adhered to the surface of the katana. This action clearly showed that Tajima had an excellent understanding of the transformation of fire-style chakra. Lightly swinging the weapon in his hand, and under the illumination of the illusory flames, he seemed to transform into a ferocious beast, hunting for its prey. Uchiha style, explosive beast. With just this one strike, the skeletal form of Susanoo was immediately cracked open. Kyosuke didn't expect that this damn old bastard's physical strength had reached such a terrifying level. Seeing the second strike coming closer, he had no choice but to use the Flying Thunder God technique to quickly retreat, narrowly avoiding Tajima's killing blow. Humphrey, ignorant brat. Tajima took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing as he turned and sped off into the distance. He understands Kyosuke's concerns. Taking action against him carries enormous risks. If the situation is exposed, no family in the Land of Fire would accept a ninja who attacked their clan leader. Such a dire circumstance would undoubtedly be the last thing Kyosuke wanted to pursue. In other words, there was no need to engage in a life-or-death struggle. As long as he could escape, it meant victory in this battle. The one who should be nervous now is you, Kyosuke brat. Tajima Uchiha thought to himself with a sneer. Where are you running, old dog? With the second stage of the cursed seal activated, Kyosuke flapped his wings and quickly caught up to his opponent's back. Crossing his hands to form a seal, Intense flames surged forward like a raging tsunami, heading straight for the enemy. Fire style, dance of flaming dragons. 4 fire dragons gathered from different directions, perfectly blocking all of Tajima's escape routes. Fire style, dance of flaming dragons, said to be an unavoidable fire style technique. Faced with its threat, Tajima's choice was simple. He turned, planted his feet firmly, and gathered chakra, slashing down with all his might. The fire dragons dispersed with a swish. Such a powerful jutsu couldn't withstand a single sword slash from a peak clan leader. Of course, Kyosuke never expected it to have much of an effect. The use of fire style was only to delay the enemy and buy himself time to reconstruct his Susanoo. With a towering height of 7 meters, wearing the fierce and domineering Karasun armor, the third stage of his Susanoo reappeared. Feeling the overwhelming, terrifying pressure like crashing waves, Tajima's expression completely changed. A look of solemnity gradually appeared in his eyes. No wonder he dared to come after me. It turns out this kid has brought his Susanoo to such a terrifying level. According to the clan records, this is the third stage of the Susanoo, possessing the terrifying power to slay the clan leader level powerhouse. Under normal circumstances, he might be able to clash with it. The strength of a peak clan leader isn't something to be taken lightly in the face of this so-called third stage. But don't forget, Tajima had just narrowly escaped from the enemy's stronghold, his strength reduced by 3/10, and his chakra was less than half of what it had been. If it came down to a life-and-death struggle, he might not be able to find a chance to win. His gaze pierced through Susanoo's armor, staring at the cold-faced youth inside. Tajima took a deep breath, and his thoughts began to settle. Perhaps I should have eliminated you earlier. Fortunately, it's not too late now. Boom. Under Kyosuke's confused gaze, Tajima suddenly summoned 2 shadow clones. Feel honored. You're the second person to witness this. Fire, wind, and lightning. 3 different nature transformations manifested on his blade. The fire blade, wind blade, and lightning sphere. 3 distinct colors of light shone together, creating a dazzling spectacle that almost made his eyes blur. This was the power that time had granted Tajima, and it was his pride, the foundation of his supremacy in the land of fire. Prepare to die. Uchiha style, 3-day crescent slash. Chapter 119, Reversing Death, Sword Strikes Tajima. All experts skilled in taijutsu excel at utilizing the teleportation jutsu. Tajima Uchiha was no exception. Though it couldn't match the level of space-time ninjutsu, it was more than sufficient to handle the relatively sluggish movements of a 3-stage Susanoo. Under normal circumstances, an attack of such magnitude would have been impossible for Kyosuke to withstand head-on, regardless of the methods he employed. However, Tajima made a fatal miscalculation. He underestimated the defensive power of the Karasun armor. Wind, thunder, and fire. The combined force of the 3 elements merged into a terrifyingly potent strike. Before the blade even descended, the ground beneath them began to crack and splinter, and even the air seemed to groan in agony under the immense pressure, letting out sharp, piercing cries. At that moment, Kyosuke pushed his dojutsu to its absolute limit. He knew that once he endured this strike, Tajima would be dead without question. The opponent's deteriorating physical condition was evident even to the naked eye. This was precisely why Tajima had taken the desperate gamble of striking so recklessly, despite the risk of exposing himself. Boom. A formless shockwave swept out in all directions. The massive dark golden figure shuddered slightly but ultimately withstood the attack. That single blade had indeed cleaved through the Karasun armor, slicing even into Susanoo's very flesh. Had Tajima been in better condition, his attack would have undoubtedly penetrated beyond the final skeletal barrier. What a pity. You've still missed your chance. Kyosuke smiled faintly as he withdrew the Kusanagi sword. Without any unnecessary flourish, he delivered a single, precise thrust. The blade pierced directly through Tajima Uchiha's chest. From the moment you set yourself against me, you should have anticipated this outcome. Pulling out the Kusanagi sword, Kyosuke allowed the scalding blood to spray freely as a look of exhilaration from the kill spread across his face. Is that so? Suddenly, Tajima's voice echoed from behind him, and in an instant, a katana thrust through Kyosuke's back, piercing his chest. A sharp pain surged through Kyosuke's body. He felt a bitter taste rise in his throat, and blood gushed uncontrollably from his mouth. On the ground, Tajima's corpse gradually dissolved and vanished, as if everything that had just happened was nothing more than an illusion. There was only one dojutsu Kyosuke knew of that could create such an effect. The Uchiha clan's forbidden technique, Izanagi. Upon activation, Izanagi allows the caster to temporarily transcend reality by using the Sharingan to record their current state, including physical condition and surroundings. During its effective duration, any injuries, fatal damage, or even death experienced by the caster can be negated and rewritten, restoring them to the recorded state as if the events leading to their demise never occurred. The technique's power was undeniable, but the cost was equally steep. At this moment, Tajima Uchiha's left eye had been permanently blinded. Yet, in exchange, he had managed to land a lethal blow from behind. "Young one, remember my words." The clan leader's voice carried both satisfaction and a mocking tone. "Until the very last moment, never presume to determine the outcome of a battle." As he spoke, Tajima released the grip on his katana and swiftly retreated backward. Perhaps driven by a determination to drag his opponent down with him, Kyosuke recklessly activated Chidori Stream, forcing the enemy to retreat from his immediate vicinity. Why struggle so needlessly? Wouldn't it be better to die quickly and painlessly? Though he said this, if not for being pressed for time, Tajima would have taken great pleasure in tormenting the boy before him. It could only be said that fortune was on Kyosuke's side today. Ugh! Another mouthful of blood sprayed out as Kyosuke tasted the cold, chilling presence of death drawing near. So, this is what it feels like to be on the brink of death, he thought. With a bitter smile, he forced himself to focus. His right Mangekyo Sharingan flared to life, radiating a brilliant light. Reverse. In an instant, everything around him seemed to freeze in place. Then, as if rewinding a pre-recorded sequence, time began to reverse moment by moment. The cracked earth mended itself, trembling leaves returned to the branches they had fallen from, and even the katana flew back into Tajima's hand. Naturally, all effects caused by the katana vanished along with the reversal of time. Touching his now unscathed abdomen, Kyosuke stood up with a smile, his gaze landing on the clan leader, whose face was now ashen with despair. "What were you lecturing me about just now?" Cough, cough. Tajima coughed violently, unable to form a complete sentence in his panic. His eyes, filled with disbelief, stared at the boy, unable to comprehend how his carefully planned killing blow had been so effortlessly undone. Seeing Kyosuke ready to strike, Tajima, whose chakra reserves were already depleted, couldn't help but plead. "Is there truly no room for a negotiation? After all, I am the father of Madara and Izuna." "True," Kyosuke replied, seemingly moved. However, his next words nearly made Tajima cough up blood. "At worst, when I attend your funeral, I'll just give you more money in condolences." In the world of Naruto, just as in his previous life, it was customary to give gifts at such events. During Naruto and Hinata's wedding, even Konohamaru had joked about Iruka's modest contribution. Given his relationship with the two brothers, 10 large bills in the condolence envelope should suffice, right? While Kyosuke pondered the matter of funeral gifts, the supposed star of the funeral, Tajima Uchiha, was less than thrilled about the idea of hosting such a banquet. Gathering what little chakra he had left, Tajima let out a furious roar and charged at the boy. Yet before he could reach him, Suzunu's fist sent him flying with a single, devastating punch. Without sufficient chakra to support him, Tajima's once proud sword dart was now reduced to mere shadows of its former glory. As for his remaining Sharingan, the truth was simple: activating Izanagi required a significant amount of chakra as well. Truly, the tables had turned, and now it was his turn to experience the despair of being cornered with no way out. Realizing Kyosuke had no intention of sparing him, Tajima saw no point in words. Summoning his last reserves of strength, he slashed wildly at his enemy with his blade. But Kyosuke had no intention of giving him another chance. He raised his hand and threw a kunai, moving with the blade as it flew. When he reappeared, a fatal wound had already been cut across Tajima's neck. Blood gushed out like a fountain, and thus, a formidable figure of his era met his end. Bending down to retrieve the fallen kunai, Kyosuke murmured softly. "Do you know why you lost? It's because you weren't evil enough." System notification: successfully killed Tajima Uchiha. Gained 32,000 points. Reaching into his robes, Kyosuke took out tools prepared by Secret Shinobi No. 1 and quickly staged the scene, making it look as though the Hidden Moon Village clan had been behind the attack. After carefully inspecting the surroundings, Kyosuke nodded in satisfaction, then donned his disguise once more and in a flash, he vanished from the spot. 30,000 points. I'm not far from exchanging for the intermediate sage body. The intermediate sage body meant an even more terrifying amount of chakra and a significant boost to physical strength. Non-lethal injuries could also heal at a much faster rate, though not at the terrifying level of self-healing without seals. His vitality would be enhanced, and the body would provide a strong nourishment for the Mangekyo Sharingan, slowly increasing the potential of the eyes. In terms of effect, it could be compared to Naruto 2 years later. Even without the tailed beasts, the amount of chakra in his body would be enough to astonish anyone. P.S. I don't know what 2 years later means, so you can just ignore it. Kyosuke even suspected that the intermediate sage body might have the ability to continue evolving the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Chapter 120, Madara opens his eyes. 3 pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan. Soon after, news spread throughout the camp that the beheading mission had failed. The young clan leader, Madara Uchiha, returned in disarray, and the clan leader, Tajima, whereabouts are unknown so far. An uneasy atmosphere gradually spread across the camp. Upon hearing the news, Hashirama and Kyosuke, despite the heavy scent of alcohol on them, hurriedly climbed out of bed and rushed to check on their friend. "I'm fine." Madara shook his head. With his father absent, he, as the young clan leader, had to shoulder the responsibility. Stepping out into the snow, Madara looked around in slight confusion. After a long silence, he suddenly asked in a low voice. "Kyosuke, no matter what happens, you'll support me, won't you?" With a faint sigh, Kyosuke nodded without hesitation. "Of course." After sending his younger brother, Izuna, back, Madara immediately set out with the clan members to search for his father's whereabouts. Unfortunately, even with the help of the Hyuga clan ninjas, he could not find any trace of Tajima. Having asked the Hyuga ninjas to continue the search, Madara Uchiha chose to return to the camp alone. He had a premonition that something had happened to his father. If that were the case, he needed to return, for there would undoubtedly be those within the clan who would seize this opportunity to cause trouble. What exactly happened? From a distance, a group of people approached, exuding an aggressive aura. Upon seeing them, Madara's eyes narrowed, recognizing the arrival of troublemakers. One of them was Koji Uchiha, a powerful elder of the clan, who held significant military influence. As long as Tajima was around, things had been under control, but with the current situation, Koji's ambitions were now clear. He strode forward, scanning each of them with a disdainful look. "Where is Tajima? Don't tell me you abandoned the clan leader and ran back here alone. Father is missing. Elder Koji, do you have any concerns?" Madara's gaze remained indifferent, and no one could tell what he was truly thinking. "Missing?" Koji Uchiha's voice instantly rose several octaves. At a time like this, when the Uchiha clan is at the brink of life and death, the clan leader is nowhere to be found. Their quarrel gradually drew the attention of the other clan members. Seizing the opportunity, Koji Uchiha took advantage of his elder status to openly criticize the Uchiha brothers. "When the clan leader is in danger, the first thing you should do is go out and search for him. No, from the very beginning, the beheading plan was a foolish idea. Now, look at this. The clan leader is gone, and who can take charge of the Uchiha clan's future?" Upon hearing this, Izuna, who had rushed over in a hurry, couldn't hold back and retorted sarcastically. "It seems, Elder Koji, you're very eager to take charge. Humphrey, apart from me, who else could shoulder this responsibility?" Koji Uchiha stroked his beard, not forgetting to undermine Madara's authority. He continued. "I don't understand how Tajima could have lost his mind and sent two young brats like you to carry out an assassination. Truly self-inflicted misfortune." Before he could finish his words, a terrifying killing intent suddenly enveloped him. Madara and Izuna stepped forward simultaneously, their Sharingan eyes fixed on Koji, not hiding the murderous intent in their gazes. "Watch your words." Madara's voice was low, his hand already gripping the hilt of his katana at his waist. "Otherwise, I'll cut your tongue out today." If it had been anyone else, they would have likely been frightened out of their wits by Madara Uchiha's presence. However, Elder Koji, a seasoned warrior who had crossed the blood-soaked path of battle, would never be intimidated by the killing intent of two young children. "Humphrey, arrogant brats." Koji sneered, his commanding aura flaring. The overwhelming pressure of his status as a clan leader-level powerhouse made the onlookers stiffen. However, the people before him seemed unaffected by his imposing presence. Sensing his authority being challenged, Koji Uchiha took a step forward, ready to discipline the young members of his clan. At that moment, a loud commotion suddenly erupted at the entrance of the camp. Shouts and cries filled the air, and the key words within them caused Madara and Izuna to change their expressions drastically. Without a second thought about dealing with Koji Uchiha, Madara rushed toward the entrance of the camp with his brother. There, they found their father's lifeless body, no longer making a sound. "Big brother." Obirama tugged at his elder brother's sleeve. As outsiders, it was clear they were not supposed to be here. Beside them, Hashirama glanced at his best friend with concern, knowing that Madara's heart must be in torment. But as his younger brother had pointed out, the Uchiha clan was on the brink of a power struggle. Even the Hyuga clan had stayed out of sight at this crucial moment. Sighing, Hashirama glanced at Kyosuke's silent back, then shook his head and returned to their camp with his younger brother. "Clan leader." Some of Tajima's loyal subordinates shouted in anguish. How could this happen? What exactly happened? Others were still unclear about the details of the beheading mission. For the sake of keeping the plan secret, Tajima had told few people about it before leaving. Many in the clan still didn't understand how their clan leader could have met such a tragic end. Perhaps sensing an opportunity, Koji Uchiha stepped forward and began to embellish the details of the incident. "Here's what happened. I understand how you feel, but someone must be held responsible for the clan leader's death. It was clear that Koji Uchiha had already decided to show his true colors. Now that the news of Kajima's death was confirmed, the election for the new clan leader would soon begin. If he didn't act first, others would soon follow. For example, Rei Uchiha from the Southern Army, Hiraki Uchiha from the West, and so on. But first, Koji Uchiha needed to tarnish the reputation of the so-called young clan leader. Even if the position was hereditary, the ability of the successor mattered. Without a doubt, Madara Uchiha was an exceptional candidate. One of a rare caliber. For that very reason, Koji Uchiha had to suppress him, not allowing this young man any chance to rise. And Izuna, that boy, and Kyosuke. They both need to be watched closely. Koji Uchiha thought to himself, his gaze slowly shifting toward Kyosuke. Kyosuke, noticing the warning in Koji's eyes, silently mouthed a response without making a sound. What? What is he saying? For a moment, Koji Uchiha doubted his own eyes. Ignoring the elder whose fate was sealed, Kyosuke turned his attention to the two brothers who remained silent. After an unknown amount of time, Madara slowly crouched down and began to carefully arrange his father's appearance. Izuna, go and stay with father. Madara's voice was cold, as though suppressing something deep inside. Big brother. Go now. Holding back the pain in his eyes, Izuna lowered his head and followed the clan members back to the camp. Faintly, Kyosuke thought he saw something change in Izuna's eyes. Before he could observe further, Madara, who had been facing away from everyone, suddenly turned around. Within his eyes, 3 black lines were interwoven, forming hollow black rings at each intersection. Mangekyo Sharingan. Activate. Chapter 121, I'm great, not because of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Staring at those eyes with strange patterns, Koji Uchiha stood frozen in place. It wasn't just him, the other Uchiha clan members also looked as if they had seen a ghost. Mangekyo Sharingan? Someone murmured in disbelief. For so many years, it seemed as if the Uchiha clan had been cursed. No matter how talented a member was, they could never evolve their 3 Tomoe Sharingan to the next stage. It felt as if something crucial was missing. Kyosuke's appearance had already excited the clan, but now, today, the young clan leader had successfully awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Wait a moment. A sudden exclamation came from the side. If Lord Madara can open his eyes, could Lord Izuna also? In truth, everyone knew that the so-called Uchiha 3 heroes were largely an exaggeration by the clan head. Izuna had excellent talent, but he was far behind the other 2. However, if he could also unlock the Mangekyo, it would be a completely different story. Noticing a few restless clan members, an elder nearby gave them an annoyed glance and whispered. If you're going to make a fuss, at least choose the right time. Is this really the moment to be worrying about such things? As he spoke, the elder gestured toward the center, where Koji Uchiha was already facing off against Madara Uchiha. Boy, don't think that unlocking the Mangekyo makes you special. Koji Uchiha's voice was dark as he pressed forward against Madara. At this moment, he no longer cared about anything else. Now was the perfect opportunity for Koji to claim the position of clan leader. If he missed it, there might never be another chance. In terms of power, he could never compare to the other 2 influential elders. Once they realized what was happening, the Uchiha clan would no longer be under his control. Hearing the elder's words, Madara shook his head, his expression proud as he firmly rejected the claim. You're wrong. I'm not impressive because of the Mangekyo. It's because I am Madara Uchiha. Taking a heavy step forward, Madara glared at Koji, his eyes sharp, his tone low. If you want power, fine. Defeat me, and you'll be the next clan leader. Upon hearing this, Kanji Uchiha's expression changed, and he immediately asked. Is this true? Humphrey, do you think I, Madara Uchiha, am someone who goes back on my word? Madara's gaze was filled with disdain. However, instead of angering Koji, Madara's arrogance only earned him a nod of approval. Not bad. This spirit is much stronger than your father's. I won't take advantage of you. If you can defeat me, I, Koji Uchiha, will fully support your rise to power. Agreed. With their agreement made, the 2 disregarded the others' attempts to stop them and quickly made their way to the empty ground behind the camp. The remaining clan members exchanged uncertain glances, feeling that things were heading in an unpredictable direction. On second thought, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Yeah, Elder Koji is highly respected, and Lord Madara is a hero of his youth. Whoever takes the position of clan leader is a blessing for us. Hey, I'm more interested in their battle. What do you think? Should we go watch? Of course I'm going. Missing such a grand event would be a regret for a lifetime. Unbeknownst to anyone, the news spread like wildfire. From 1 person to 10, from 10 to 100, the entire camp was abuzz, and soon every clan member staying behind had caught wind of it. It wasn't that there were no other candidates eligible to compete for the position of clan leader, but the none possessed the combined power of the two about to face off. In other words, no matter who won or lost in the upcoming battle, the victor would undoubtedly ascend to the position of clan leader. The excitement wasn't limited to the Uchiha clan members. Even Hashirama was itching to join the crowd, barely held back by Tobirama's firm grip. "Brother," Tobirama said, exasperated, rolling his eyes. "With so many Uchiha present, aren't you asking for trouble by going there?" Seeing Hashirama still restless and eager to leave, Tobirama took a deep breath and struck where it hurt the most. "If they label Madara as colluding with the Senju because of you, I'm afraid his chances of becoming the clan leader will be over." "Fine, I won't go," Hashirama muttered, slumping down. Watching his elder brother sulk in a corner, looking utterly defeated, Tobirama couldn't help but feel a vein throb in his forehead. Even his breathing felt more labored. "This is exhausting." Behind the camp, open field, the two stood apart, separated by dozens of meters, their gazes locked in cautious assessment. To ensure fairness, Madara had chosen not to wield his signature war fan. "Gun by." Well, you've got some backbone," Koji Uchiha remarked with a faint smile, thinking to himself, "You've brought this on yourself. Don't blame me for using my strength to crush your arrogance." As an elder, Koji was well aware of the Uchiha war fan's power. With it, an opponent's strength could increase by at least 20%, while simultaneously nullifying most ninjutsu. It was naturally preferable that the fan wasn't in play now. Such a straightforward young man would be an easy blade to wield in the future. On the other hand, Madara understood the significance of this battle all too well. It was precisely because of that understanding that he refused to rely on external aids. Madara wanted Elder Koji and every member of the Uchiha clan to recognize that his strength didn't stem from the Mangekyo Sharingan, nor from his position as the clan heir. His strength was his own, because he was Madara Uchiha. Drawing the long sword from his waist, he took a moment to prepare before surging forward like a meteor colliding with the earth. The clash between the two was instant and fierce. Koji Uchiha was an experienced, clan leader-level powerhouse. His combat strength had long since reached its peak, and his body was in the prime of its life. By all logic, he should have easily suppressed his opponent. After all, Madara Uchiha was still just a young man, his body not yet fully matured. Compared to a true expert, his overall physical ability should have been inferior. However, when the two clashed, an invisible shockwave rippled outward, causing the gathered crowd to realize something was amiss. How could the young clan heir, barely out of adolescence, go toe-to-toe with Elder Koji in sheer physical strength? Amazing. A Jonin murmured to himself, stunned by the sight before him. It wasn't hard to believe that Madara Uchiha had immense chakra reserves and a mastery of numerous jutsu. Those were expected. But his physical strength, something that couldn't be improved simply through training, was another matter entirely. If the body hasn't reached a sufficient stage of development, no amount of training can break through the natural barrier that stands as a constant hindrance. Many clan members, including seasoned Jonin, found themselves unable to comprehend the source of Madara's overwhelming power. "Of course," someone muttered. "He is the reincarnation of Indra. From the moment of his awakening, he was destined to be worlds apart from ordinary people." Kyosuke, however, found nothing surprising about this. While Madara's strength might not surpass Hashirama's, the gap between them could never be too wide. In simple terms, the essence of a ninja's combat prowess lies in chakra. As long as one has sufficient energy, even shattering the moon with a single punch is not an impossibility. Take the renowned Might Dewey and his son, along with the later Rock Lee. Despite their reputation for mastering taijutsu, the essence of their strong fist technique is still chakra-driven. In this respect, Madara Uchiha, as the reincarnation of Indra's chakra, possesses an unparalleled advantage. Well, with the sole exception of Senju Hashirama. Chapter 122, Only because I am Madara Uchiha. During the Fourth Great Ninja War, the formidable fire style and taijutsu techniques exhibited by Madara were not the result of any enhanced physical abilities granted by dojutsu powers. The reason is simple. His chakra was vast enough. Had Hashirama been there, even using a simple earth-style jutsu would require dozens of ninjas working together to resist it. As for why Madara didn't use his dojutsu techniques, Kyosuke speculated that there were two possible reasons. First, Madara's dojutsu techniques were passive abilities, not ones that could directly affect the human body. Second, these dojutsu techniques had no effect on Hashirama Senju. Between the two, Kyosuke leaned more towards the first explanation. During his battle with the allied shinobi forces and the five Kage, summoning, Impure World Reincarnation, Madara displayed his personal abilities almost perfectly. Taijutsu, swordsmanship, ninjutsu, the Mangekyo Sharingan, the Rinnegan, wood style, and so on. Had the nine tails not been absent, he would have even summoned a summoning beast to show off. He clearly had been holding back for quite some time. If the abilities granted by the Mangekyo Sharingan were something that could be used in a direct and obvious way, there would have been no reason for Madara to deliberately hide them. The only explanation is that he either could not use them actively or, if he did, the effect was not immediately obvious. For example, Ganjutsu. In the span of thousands of years, Indra's reincarnations number in the dozens, and while they might not reach Madara's level, at the very least, activating the Mangekyo Sharingan should not have been an issue. So why has Black Zetsu not modified the stone tablet to guide earlier reincarnations to merge with the power of the Senju? Kyosuke guessed that those reincarnations did not meet the conditions required to use the infinite Tsukuyomi. The Rinnegan is one aspect, but possessing the qualifications to cast infinite Tsukuyomi is also crucial. Perhaps these qualifications are the Dujutsu techniques that Madara holds. Black Zetsu's long wait was for such a reincarnation to appear. During the battle between summoning, Impure World Reincarnation Madara and the 5 Kage, the Raikage activated his lightning-style armor to its fullest, with chakra boiling inside him like boiling water, making it seemingly impossible for him to be affected by Ganjutsu. However, when Madara merely glanced at him with his Mangekyo Sharingan, the Raikage collapsed on the spot. The mastery of Madara's Ganjutsu was so high, it even surpassed his proficiency in Taijutsu and Ninjutsu. Even when Madara made his first appearance, Anoki, the Sushi Kage, immediately shouted for everyone to avoid looking at his eyes. This showed that, in Anoki's mind, Madara's Ganjutsu was far more terrifying than his Ninjutsu and Taijutsu. End of forced explanation. Just enjoy, everyone. At the scene, both sides had been silently staring at each other for a long time. Since they were all members of the Uchiha clan, they understood that the two were competing in Ganjutsu. What do you think? Who do you think will win? I used to think Elder Koji had the better chance, but now. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, the situation on the battlefield finally began to shift. Cough, cough, cough. Koji Uchiha stumbled back 2 steps, clutching his eyes and gasping heavily for air. On the other side, Madara Uchiha was drenched in sweat, his chest rising and falling rapidly, clearly exhausted from the massive chakra expenditure. The spectators held their breath, their gazes shifting between the two combatants. It seemed that the young clan leader had gained a clear advantage. Why? After a long silence, Koji Uchiha suddenly asked a question that no one could understand. In response, Madara Uchiha did not explain in detail but silently raised his long blade, adopting a posture that indicated his intention to engage in close combat. Koji Uchiha inhaled deeply, his eyes filled with a complex expression as he stared at his opponent. Only he knew that within the eerie illusionary space, Madara Uchiha had the power to easily finish him off. As for why he didn't, to be honest, Koji Uchiha wasn't entirely sure. Come, let me see how good your skills are, he said, raising his katana to assume a defensive stance for the first time. Before the audience could react to the surprise, Madara Uchiha appeared in front of Koji like a flash, kicking him in the abdomen with incredible speed. Such speed. Even Kyosuke couldn't help but feel surprised. Initially, he had thought that Izuna was the fastest ninja he had ever seen, but now it seems that Madara was just as impressive. In fact, when it came to agility and explosive power, Madara had undergone a qualitative leap. His frightening speed was even faster than Kyosuke's full-powered teleportation jutsu. It seemed that only the Flying Thunder God technique could match Madara's speed at this moment. So this is the power granted by Indra's chakra, Kyosuke thought, feeling a twinge of envy. On the battlefield, what should have been an evenly matched fight had now turned into a one-man show by Madara Uchiha. Illusions held an overwhelming advantage, and Taijutsu was able to suppress the opponent entirely throughout the battle. Keep in mind, this was Koji Uchiha, a legendary elder renowned throughout the ninja world. When has he ever been reduced to this kind of situation? This wasn't just about illusions. During the fight, Madara hadn't even activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. He was using only his regular Sharingan, fighting head-on with his opponent. What did this show? It showed that even without awakening the Mangekyo, Madara Uchiha still possessed the power to look down upon everything. Deflecting a sword strike aimed at him, Madara sneered as he closed in, planting his right foot on the ground. In an instant, his body twisted into the air, using the momentum to land a devastating kick to Koji's chest. In just 1 minute, Koji Uchiha was knocked to the ground for the second time. Damn it! Elder Koji muttered, his hair disheveled, his face filled with the shame of failing to maintain his dignity in his later years. Overcome with rage, he paid no attention to the clan members surrounding him and decisively unleashed his strongest S-rank fire-style technique. You old fool, you're asking for death. Kyosuke's eyes narrowed, a cold, menacing aura radiating from him. Among the onlookers were many of his subordinates. Without any warning or defense, the damage caused by this jutsu could be catastrophic. It could be said that from the moment Koji Uchiha began to form his high-level jutsu, he completely forfeited any chance of claiming the position of clan leader. No one would allow a person who disregarded the lives of others to lead them. Bastard, how dare you! Madara, having already decided to take on the responsibilities of clan leader, immediately activated his Mangekyo Sharingan, pushing his Dujutsu power to its peak. In a moment of disorientation, he felt as though his soul was about to leave his body. Steeling himself, the blue arm of the Susanoo materialized in an instant, and it swung fiercely toward his opponent. On the side, Kyosuke still prepared to intervene. Even with the initial form of the Susanoo, it might not be enough to break through Koji's S-rank fire-style jutsu. At that moment, the fiery jutsu, resembling a divine sword of flames, suddenly shrank at a visible speed, eventually dissipating into sparkling lights in the air. Not far away, Izuna, with a pained expression, covered his eyes, his face full of exhaustion. Fortunately, my Dujutsu techniques can help big brother. Boom. The Susanoo's fist struck with overwhelming force, sending Koji Uchiha crashing to the ground, grievously injured. Had Madara not intentionally held back, Koji's insides would have likely been crushed. After defeating his opponent, Madara swept his sharp gaze across the field. Anyone who met his eyes immediately lowered their heads. Youthful ambition, more proud than the autumn frost, what could rival the thrill of advancing in a single victorious battle? Today, Madara Uchiha had proven himself with absolute strength. From this moment on, he would be the undisputed leader of the Uchiha clan. Chapter 123, I will remember this night forever. Amid the heavy snowfall, Kyosuke carried a jug of wine and slipped into the tent. As the curtain was lifted, a gust of fierce wind swept into the tent, causing the oil lamp to flicker. Beneath its wavering light, Madara's face looked noticeably tired. Oh, working even on New Year's Eve, are we? Our esteemed clan leader. Kyosuke teased as he stepped in. Hearing the jest, Madara responded with a helpless smile and stretched lazily, his fatigue evident. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed since he became the new leader of the Uchiha clan. Thanks to the concerted efforts of various supporters, Madara's ascension to power had been relatively smooth. Even Koji Uchiha expressed his support for him, leaving others with little reason to object. The only unpredictable factor was Rei Uchiha of the Southern Army. Fortunately, Kyosuke personally wrote a letter to him, that managed to persuade the venerable elder. As for the contents of the letter, only Kyosuke himself knew. Madara, for his part, was somewhat curious but refrained from investigating further out of trust in his friend. Right now, their primary focus was to defeat the invaders. In 3 months, the Uchiha clan had finally managed to halt their deterioration. Even though the enemy's puppet army still surged relentlessly, it could do little against the might of 3 Mangekyo Sharingan wielders. Taking the wine flask Kyosuke handed him, Madara tilted his head back and drank deeply, the weariness on his face easing somewhat. In terms of age, he had taken up the mantle of clan leader 6 or 7 years earlier than expected. The burden was undoubtedly heavy, but Kyosuke's support lightened it somewhat. Help me out, will you? Madara suddenly chuckled and said. How about I make you the youngest elder in Uchiha history? Sure. Kyosuke replied nonchalantly with a nod. But, before Madara could rejoice, Kyosuke doused his excitement with a cold dose of reality. But don't expect me to handle any of the administrative work. I'm not doing it. Then what do you even spend your days doing? Training, of course, my friend. Such a reasonable excuse left Madara with nothing to refute. He couldn't possibly ask someone to abandon their training, could he? After all, these were the responsibilities of a clan leader. Madara, Kyosuke said after some thought, deciding to offer a piece of advice. I'm sure you've read about the drawbacks of the Mangekyo. The ninja world is vast, and there are countless hidden masters. Our current strength is far from invincible. I understand. Madara nodded. How much he truly took to heart, however, was another matter. Having just taken on the leadership, he didn't have a dependable team to delegate tasks to. Once everything settled into place in the future, he believed things wouldn't be as hectic as they were now. Come, let's relax a bit tonight. I'll call over Izuna and Hashirama. Let's have a little gathering. Fine. Now that Madara was the clan leader, he didn't need to concern himself too much with public perception. Facing Hashirama's relentless persuasion, he once again rekindled his dream of building a peaceful village. Kyosuke, however, remained skeptical as ever. He'd always said the same thing, if you want to talk about peace, wait until you become the leader of the Senju clan. Every time this topic came up, it was met with Hashirama's helpless smile. As for the actions of his 2 sons, Senju Batsuma was practically at his wits' end. If not for Tajima's death, which inadvertently calmed his temper. There was a real chance Hashirama might have been expelled from the Senju clan. Kyosuke could only offer a moment of silence for his friend's painful experience. At most, he would wait until he had the time and find a way to get rid of his troublesome father. Once Hashirama became the clan leader, there would no longer be any obstacles between him and Madara. At that point, they could do whatever they wanted without restriction. I truly am a considerate and understanding friend. Kyosuke mused. Boom, boom, boom. Fire style erupted in the sky, a display Kyosuke had specifically instructed his subordinates to arrange. After all, it was the new year. What kind of celebration would it be without fireworks? Perhaps because the year was coming to an end, the enemy's offensive had slowed significantly. After a year of grueling battles, they had finally earned a brief respite. When the fighting resumed, who knew how many would fall on the icy battlefield? 12 years old now. Kyosuke thought, his mind drifting. For a moment, he almost seemed to see the prosperous future of Hidden Leaf Village. To be honest, he was truly tired. Endlessly killing and fighting. Whether it was the Uchiha's aggressive nature or the environment itself, anyone in such a situation for a long time would undoubtedly see a shift in their character. Fortunately, this war was finally coming to an end. Other clans gradually realized that something was wrong and began secretly offering help to the Uchiha. For example, they cut off the enemy's supply of corpses, and without that, the Hidden Moon Village clan was no longer the invincible force it had once seemed. Moreover, it seemed that Black Zetsu did not want the Uchiha clan to be wiped out. Without the help of that old coin, how could Otsutsuki Sujito, that fool, ever stand a chance against the battle-hardened Uchiha? Within 6 months, this war will end. Madara raised his cup. To his right, Kyosuke looked at everyone with a smile and raised his cup in turn. On his left, Izuna mimicked the gesture, though his gaze was more focused on Tobirama, as if secretly competing with him. That's right, let's end this damn war. Hashirama said with a hearty laugh, clearly in a good mood. The 5 people present could be said to represent the future peak of combat strength in the ninja world. What the future held was uncertain, but at least for now, everyone was working toward the same goal. Haha, cheers. That night, all 5 drank to excess. Perhaps they themselves weren't sure if they would ever have the chance to share a drink like this again in the future. No matter what happens in the future. I will definitely remember tonight. Having fun with my friends. It was truly a good time. Hashirama, clutching the bottle, fell into a drowsy sleep, his thoughts muddled. Yes. Kyosuke murmured, closing his eyes with a smile. It was indeed a good time. After the new year, the Hidden Moon Village clan quickly launched another attack. Unfortunately, after losing their supply of soldiers, they began to feel the strain. Not only were they unable to break through the Uchiha's blockade, but at this point, simply managing to avoid a counterattack was a success. After spending a month to recover their advantage, the Uchiha clan began planning a full-scale assault on the enemy. It was then that something completely unexpected occurred. The Fuma clan, who had defected, suddenly turned their weapons against the Hidden Moon Village clan. These bastards! Otsutsuki Sujito roared in fury. The one thing he hated the most was betrayal. Of course, he had never intended to keep his promises. Once the Uchiha and Senju clans were destroyed, the Fuma clan could forget about escaping. With no corpses to build an army and no supplies to sustain them, the Hidden Moon Village clan had reached the end of the line. Seeing this, Otsutsuki Sujito finally stopped hesitating. He decided to go to the battlefield himself, using his own power to carve a path for his clan. His eyes shone with brilliant blue light, the power of his Tenseigan nearing full activation, which meant he would soon be able to use even more of his strength. However, it seemed that he might not have time to use it on the battlefield. It's all right. With the power I have now, no one in the ninja world can stop me. I am already invincible. Chapter 124, Weakness earns no respect, and diplomacy belongs to the strong. That day, the Uchiha clan received a rather peculiar guest. I've long heard that clan leader Madara is an exceptional talent even from a young age. Seeing you in person today, I can see the rumors don't do you justice, said the visitor, as he started showering Madara with flattery. The guest visiting the Uchiha was none other than the patriarch of the Fuma clan, a man named Fuma Yukishi. A top-tier fighter with a reputation that left much to be desired. Of course, when faced with 3 pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan, any so-called top-tier title would pale in comparison. Fuma Yukishi knew this all too well, so he made sure to present himself with great humility. Patriarch Yukishi. Madara began, unreserved and direct as ever, once both parties had taken their seats. Our clans have long been at odds. Are you not concerned that stepping into Uchiha territory might mean you won't leave alive? Fuma Yukishi, who had been preparing to continue his polite remarks, froze at Madara's words. His expression stiffened as he thought, why is this man so unpredictable? I've come here clearly to surrender, and yet here he is, threatening to turn against me outright. Noticing that Yukishi's expression was growing more and more awkward, Kyosuke interjected calmly. Patriarch Yukishi, I've heard your clan has already begun clashing with the enemy? At this, Fuma Yukishi's eyes brightened as if realizing something. He quickly nodded and affirmed. That's right. I've discovered the enemy's malicious ambition to annihilate the entire shinobi world. As part of the Land of Fire, the Fuma clan has a responsibility to take a stand. Ah, Patriarch Yukishi, your noble sense of duty is truly admirable. On behalf of the countless citizens of the Land of Fire, I thank you. Not at all, not at all. It's simply my responsibility. Watching Kyosuke spout such hypocritical platitudes with a practiced smile, Madara was momentarily stunned, as if seeing a new side of him for the first time. Is this the same man who claims to lack skill in diplomacy? You're a natural at this. After Kyosuke and Yukishi concluded their round of insincere flattery, Madara finally let out a resigned sigh and took over the conversation. Since that's the case, on behalf of the Uchiha clan, I thank Patriarch Yukishi for his assistance. No need for thanks, no need at all. It's my duty. Having received his task to hold the defensive line, Fuma Yukishi departed with satisfaction. Inside the tent, Madara hesitated several times before finally voicing his thoughts tentatively. Why did you choose to accept him? His meaning was clear. He had been reluctant to accept the Fuma clan's allegiance. In Madara's eyes, the Fuma were nothing more than a group of opportunistic schemers. Their claim of seeing through the enemy's plans was merely an excuse. The real reason for their shift in allegiance was the growing weakness of the Tsukahime clan, which prompted them to seek refuge with the Uchiha clan. Should the Uchiha falter in the future, Fuma Yukishi would undoubtedly be the first to lead an invasion into the heart of the Land of Fire. Kyosuke, of course, was well aware of this. Seeing his companion still struggling to understand, Kyosuke calmly explained. Schemers are ideal. I've always had a fondness for those driven by self-preservation. They're predictable and useful when needed. We don't need loyalty from the Fuma. What the Uchiha need right now are voices. Voices within the Land of Fire that openly support us. Madara, I won't comment on the clan's past decisions, but starting today, the Uchiha need to undergo some changes. Stopping Madara from responding, Kyosuke smiled faintly and continued. I know you've never truly given up on that dream. No matter when it happens, the chaotic warring states era will eventually come to an end. The establishment of a village is inevitable. The real question is, will it be led by the Senju, or by our Uchiha clan? Think it over carefully. Madara was no fool, his personality was simply too stubborn. With a bit of guidance, this young clan leader would understand quickly enough. By bringing the Fuma into the fold, they would become a weapon in the Uchiha's arsenal. Loyalty wasn't necessary. As long as irreconcilable hatred developed between the Fuma and the Senju, the Fuma would have no choice but to stand firmly with the Uchiha. Don't be fooled by the Senju's willingness to negotiate peace with the Uchiha. It wasn't because they were particularly kind or reasonable. It was purely because both sides were equally matched, and further conflict would only lead to mutual destruction. As for the Fuma clan, they would serve their purpose. If the Senju truly wanted to, they could wipe them out in an instant. The idea of resolving things with a smile and letting bygones be bygones simply didn't exist. Even though Hashirama was kind-hearted, Tobirama was far from having a good temper, something Fuma Yukishi surely understood. In simple terms, a weak clan has no diplomacy. I understand. Madara nodded, beginning to grasp Kyosuke's thoughts. If a village were to be established in the future, the Fuma clan would inevitably join, becoming a faction to support the Uchiha. Kyosuke really is thinking far ahead. Madara thought with a sense of admiration. In truth, Kyosuke's thoughts went beyond this. He had personally witnessed the secretive dealings between Fuma Yukishi and Black Zetsu. Logically, he should have kept his distance from such a person. But upon further consideration, having someone like that around might not be a bad thing. In the past, no one knew what Black Zetsu was truly up to. But with the Fuma clan by his side, Kyosuke would essentially have a tracking device for Black Zetsu. With the right arrangements, there might be an opportunity to capture that loyal son one day. Of course, this couldn't be spoken of openly. Fortunately, his earlier thoughts weren't entirely a facade for his friend. Fuma Yukishi was certainly not someone willing to be a puppet. Looking at the fate of the Hidden Moon Village clan, it was clear what the consequences were for aligning with Black Zetsu. For the sake of his clan and his own life, Kyosuke was certain that, at the critical moment, Fuma Yukishi would make the right decision. Patting his companion on the shoulder, Kyosuke smiled and reassured him. Don't think too much. Just treat the Fuma as a practice target that walks right into your hands. I'm not thinking about him. Madara said, his expression strange as he looked at him. After a moment, he couldn't help but ask. You seem quite interested in the idea of establishing a village, huh? Yeah. Kyosuke nodded, his expression turning slightly serious. I'm planning to become the leader of the hidden village of the Fire Country. I see now. Madara suddenly seemed to understand. That's why you didn't want to accept the elder's position. Smart. Good. Madara's expression grew serious, and he spoke with a firm promise. If that day comes, I will fully support you in taking the position. There's also Miyazuna, who had no understanding of leadership, finally seized the chance to speak. Both me and my elder brother will support you. Ha ha ha, with the three of us together, there's nothing in this world we can't accomplish. As they laughed, a messenger suddenly arrived outside the camp. Report to the clan leader, the enemy is gathering on a large scale. It seems they are preparing for a full-scale assault. Good timing. At that moment, Madara Uchiha was full of energy, and without hesitation, he decided to face the enemy head-on. The death of his father and the countless souls of the Uchiha clan. He was determined to avenge them all through this battle. Send a message to the Hyuga clan and invite the clan leader Tenjin for a discussion. Izuna, go find Hashirama and tell him the time for the final battle has come. Soon, leaders from various factions gathered in the main camp of the Uchiha clan. The final showdown was about to begin. Chapter 125, Izuna's Kagutsuchi. The sudden arrival of Otsutsuki Sujito immediately drew the great attention of all parties. Kill him, and the war will end. Madara Uchiha murmured under his breath. Those are my eyes. Hyuga Tenjin muttered, his breath quickening as an insatiable desire gleamed in his gaze. Hey, pathetic fools. Fumayukishi sneered, casually distancing himself from the others. He feared that the man might recklessly come after him for revenge. Little did he know, at that moment, Otsutsuki Sujito wasn't paying him the slightest attention. While everyone else hesitated, carefully observing the situation, one individual could no longer hold back and took action first. Bastard! Give me back my father's life. Izuna Uchiha roared as he charged at the enemy with unrestrained fury. With a series of hand seals, several massive pillars of flame erupted from the ground, twisting and writhing like serpents as they encircled the enemy. Fire style, great flame technique. Foolish brat. Sujito remarked with cold indifference. To him, the young man was nothing more than a reckless child scrambling to survive. What was there to take seriously? This level of trickery? Spare me. As his Tenseigun gleamed faintly, an overwhelming repulsive force surged outward like a tidal wave. The seemingly powerful pillars of flame instantly shattered into pieces, bursting like fragile balloons under the pressure. Humphrey, not worth mentioning. Sujito muttered. But as he glanced down, his eyes met a pair of hunting, glowing orbs. A frown creased his brow. There was something about the boy that felt off compared to their last encounter. Not worth mentioning? Izuna grinded his teeth, his rage boiling over as he experienced, for the first time in his life, such an intense desire to kill someone. Fine then. Today, I'll show you something new. Saying this, he suddenly activated his Mengekyo Sharingan, triggering his Jujutsu, and the flames that were about to dissipate immediately regained some of their former intensity. Kagutsuchi. The newly revitalized flames coiled around Sujito like a whirlwind, compressing inward with relentless force. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Boom. It wasn't until Sujito unleashed another wave of repulsive force that he managed to break free from the vortex of fire. As he emerged, his body bore scorched marks, and his expression turned grim. What is this ability? Why didn't you show it before? He demanded. Humphrey. Izuna's icy gaze was unwavering. Scarlet flames swirled around him, casting his figure in the image of a blazing deity. It is the power of hatred. Hatred that has shown me how to kill you. Today, I will make you pay for my father's life. As soon as the words left his mouth, an intense emerald glow burst forth around him. After rigorous training, Izuna had successfully mastered the power of Susanoo. The emerald green Susanoo in its second form appeared, conjuring a bow and arrow. Flaming arrows took shape, locking firmly onto the enemy. Die. Blaze style, Susanoo Kagutsuchi. The arrow of the Susanoo was incredibly swift, almost arriving in front of the enemy in the blink of an eye. Boom. The whirlpool of flames exploded, and Otsutsuki Sujito was struck by Izuna's attack without any reaction. The dark green Susanoo dissipated, and Izuna half knelt on the ground, breathing heavily. For him at this moment, simultaneously activating the Susanoo and his unique Jujutsu was still too much to bear. At last, I've avenged my father. Before the smile on his lips could fully form, a figure wrapped in black mist suddenly charged toward him. Brat, you're still too inexperienced. The green sphere of light expanded infinitely, engulfing Izuna in an instant. Boom. A terrifying explosion rang out. Even though Izuna managed to summon his Susanoo at the critical moment, he still couldn't avoid being severely injured by the enemy's strike. Ultimately, Izuna's age was still too young. What a pity, if only his other dujutsu were Amaterasu. Kyosuke remarked with slight regret. A dujutsu combined with Kagetsuchi could control all flames, including the black flames, and with it, the user would truly deserve the title of Fire God. However, mere control was not enough. To defeat the enemy, the power of the flames was equally important. In this regard, Izuna was inferior to Sasuke, even though in the later battles, aside from the white Zetsu clones, Amaterasu couldn't burn anyone. Sasuke's mastery of fire was greater. Dodging the light energy projectiles coming his way, Kyosuke didn't act immediately. Black Zetsu's abandonment meant that the Otsutsuki clan had already reached the end of the road. He even began to doubt that these people might not even have the ability to return to the moon anymore. Although the enemy appeared to be in full control, none of the powerful figures had yet made their move. No matter how strong he was, it would be impossible for him to survive a relentless barrage. Izuna's defeat meant that the time had come for the strongest brother complex to appear. Bastard, I'll take your life. With a furious roar, Madara Uchiha, the king of dance, made his grand entrance. His hands moved rapidly, like butterflies weaving through flowers, completing the hand seals. Then, a sea of flames once again descended upon the world. Fire style, majestic flame annihilation. A fireball, resembling a meteor, fell from the sky, its area of coverage so vast that every ninja on the battlefield couldn't help but take notice. God, the clan leader's fire style. What terrifying power, even Lord Tajima might not be able to do this. In a corner of the battlefield, Koji Uchiha shook his head with a bitter smile, finally understanding the immense gap between him and the clan leader. He had once prided himself on being a fire style expert, but now, witnessing Madara's fire style, he understood what it meant for a flickering candle to compete with the bright moon. Awakening the power of Indra, Madara's chakra had indeed surged to an extraordinary level. However, the cause of such a spectacular display seemed to involve more than just the sheer quantity of chakra. As an observer, Kyosuke had always believed that Madara's second ocular technique might be related to this, yet it appeared to be more than just a simple enhancement. According to the Sage of Six Paths description, after death, the soul should lose all consciousness and passively head to a place called the Pure Land. There, the deceased would rest peacefully, unaware of the passage of time. The reanimated corpses summoned by Orochimaru confirmed this, as even the four Hokage couldn't sense anything unusual after their death. Only the true Otsutsuki clan had the ability to break the rules of the Pure Land. Besides that, Madara's reappearance among the reanimated army was an exception. When the King of Dance was summoned, he kicked open his coffin, and his first words were, "That kid Nagato has finally grown up, making me wait so long." This indicated that even after death, Madara retained his consciousness and could clearly sense the passage of time. When the reanimation jutsu was lifted and his soul began to ascend, Madara still managed to force his spiritual form to return, even casting fire-style jutsu while in his soul state. It was truly outrageous. Initially, Kyosuke thought this was a result of the reanimation jutsu, but upon further reflection, at that time, Madara hadn't even undone the technique yet. Moreover, not just anyone could undo the effects of reanimation. As its creator, Tobirama would have a hard time moving even an inch without Orochimaru's permission, let alone cancelling the jutsu. Madara, on the other hand, could freely play with the five Kage without worrying about the caster erasing his will, all thanks to his second dujutsu technique. Thus, Kyosuke boldly speculated that this power was most likely related to the soul. Enhancing ninjutsu was merely a side effect, similar to how Kyosuke's own fusion of spiritual energy had consistently boosted his chakra reserves. It was the soul that truly hid Madara's deepest power. Chapter 126, The Three Gods Join Forces. Unrivaled across the world on the battlefield, Madara, Kyosuke, and Hashirama stood side by side. "It seems the enemy is finally at the end of their rope," Kyosuke said, rolling his neck. Deep down, he couldn't deny that Black Zetsu's methods were truly remarkable. Silently and without warning, the seemingly insurmountable problem that neither the Uchiha nor the Hyuga clans could solve together had been effortlessly resolved. In the past, the Hidden Moon Village clan had always employed a dispersed strategy, relentlessly expanding the battlefield. To put it plainly, they relied on overwhelming numbers to exploit their opponent's lack of manpower. This forced everyone into a state of exhaustion, particularly Kyosuke, who, with his exceptional mobility, had been running from one hotspot to another like a firefighter, extinguishing flames wherever they arose. But now, the enemy's puppet army had dwindled sharply in numbers, forcing them to concentrate their forces in one location. This shift finally gave the three warriors the chance to join forces against their foe. In the distance, a familiar rumbling echoed. The thunderous roar signaled the approach of the puppet army, pouring in like an unstoppable tide. The usual plan? Madara tilted his head slightly, a faint smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Despite the grim situation, he couldn't suppress the pleasure of fighting alongside his comrades. For Madara, it was a rare and treasured feeling, one that made him realize that, apart from his younger brother, there were other things in this world worth cherishing. Leave it to me. Hashirama nodded firmly and, under countless watchful eyes, stepped to the front of the group. Senju Hashirama. Hyuga Tenjin murmured softly to the two beside him. Pay close attention to him. He's the opponent you'll need to surpass one day. Next to him, Hyuga Yaoi responded with a nod but didn't take her clan leader's words to heart. She knew Tenjin wasn't addressing her, his advice was meant for the young man standing beside her. Hyuga Kasuke. I understand, father. Kasuke replied, his tone calm but his gaze brimming with pride. He had learned of the existence of the Tenseigan and, based on the information discovered on the moon, understood that its power far surpassed that of the Sharingan. Kasuke firmly believed that one day, he would surpass the individuals standing before him. P.S. Ha, ignorant fool. Yaoi's lips tightened as she looked at the young man's determined profile. Her gaze grew unfocused, as if lost in thought. That peculiar look in her eyes was strikingly similar to the one Kyosuke had when he looked at Keiijan Uchiha. At the forefront of the group, Hashirama took a deep breath. Guiding his spiritual energy, his entire body became enveloped in a faint purple chakra glow. Even from a distance of more than 10 meters, everyone could feel the powerful gusts of air created by the surge of chakra. This guy. Madara couldn't help but shake his head. Every time he thought he had made significant progress, Hashirama would immediately unleash an equivalent level of power in return. To manifest chakra in such a tangible form without employing any ninjutsu. Any experienced ninja would immediately understand the profound significance of this feat. Fall to the ground, sinners. Hashirama clapped his hands together with a resounding snap. The terrifying effects of his ninjutsu caused the ground for several kilometers ahead to tremble slightly. Wood-style secret technique, nativity of a world of trees. In an instant, Hashirama created an entire forest in the distance. Towering trees, each tens of meters tall, stretched toward the sky, easily reaching the puppets flying overhead. Even before direct contact, the enemy had already suffered significant losses. None of you will pass through here today. Hashirama declared with the imposing demeanor of a legendary warrior. But before he could finish his proclamation, a group of puppets leaped effortlessly through the gaps between the trees. Hashirama, Madara. What a fool. Brandishing his war fan, Madara Uchiha charged forward with great speed, using the fan as a shield to block the oncoming barrage of green energy projectiles. Once he had gathered enough energy, he leaped high into the air and, with a cold smirk, swung the fan in his hand. Uchiha return. A raging shockwave erupted in all directions, instantly engulfing a large swarm of human puppets within its range. Fighting airborne enemies proved troublesome, even for powerhouses like Hashirama and Madara, who had to exert 3 to 4 times their usual effort to contend with them. However, for Kyosuke, aerial combat seemed to pose no such challenges. Flapping the wings bestowed upon him by the cursed seal, he aimed at the enemy formation and unfurled a scroll containing custom-made kunai. The puppeteer, hidden in the rear, suddenly noticed a barrage of kunai raining down on their puppet army. That style. Not good. It's Kyosuke Uchiha. Unfortunately, by the time they realized the danger, it was already too late to evade or escape. Activating his Mengekyo Sharingan, the spiritual energy spheres within the puppets were clearly reflected in his eyes. Using the Flying Thunder God technique, Kyosuke teleported behind one of the puppets. With a swift thrust of his Kusanagi sword, he brought it down effortlessly. System notification, successfully killed a hidden Moon Village puppet. Gained 116 points, TSK, another weak puppet. Before his voice could fade, Kyosuke had already closed in on another puppet. With a sharp thrust of his Chidori Sharp Spear, he pierced through its head with ease. System notification, successfully killed a hidden Moon Village puppet. Gained 88 points, damn, is my luck this bad today? Unlike Minato no Mikaze, Kyosuke lacked the godlike reflexes to eliminate dozens of enemies in an instant. However, he had his own methods. If efficiency fell short, then he would make up for it with sheer numbers. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 shadow clones appeared simultaneously, each utilizing the Flying Thunder God technique. While they couldn't match Minato at his peak, they were more than sufficient to handle these puppets. System notification, successfully killed the Shadow puppet. Gained 65 points, system notification, successfully killed the Shadow puppet. Gained 39 points, system notification, successfully killed the Shadow puppet. Gained 404 points, phew. Finally found a big one. Kyosuke remarked, visibly relieved. The quality of the enemy puppets was highly inconsistent. Most of them couldn't even match the level of a gain-in. While their combined strength could be overwhelming, individually, they were no match for Kyosuke. Correspondingly, the points they awarded were meager. As Hashirama worked to prevent the enemy forces from regrouping, Madara fended off waves of energy attacks, while Kyosuke systematically eliminated clusters of puppets. The three worked in perfect harmony, delivering a magnificent spectacle for everyone to witness. Truly, the younger generation is formidable, murmured Fumayukishi from afar, his gaze flickering as though he was secretly contemplating some idea. On the other side, Hyuga Tenjin no longer felt the same certainty as before. Even if his son could awaken the Tenseigan, would it truly guarantee surpassing the three before him? Damn it! How did so many prodigies suddenly appear at once? As one of the most outstanding warriors of the older generation, Hyuga Tenjin suddenly felt an unsettling sense that he was being left behind by the times. While he silently reflected, his expression abruptly changed. His Byakugan locked onto a certain point ahead, his focus unshakable. In that direction, a terrifying presence was rapidly approaching. It wasn't just him, Kyosuke and the others also sensed that something was amiss. The three exchanged glances and quickly regrouped. The main player has finally shown up, Kyosuke murmured to himself. Far in the distance, a figure sped toward them. His eyes radiated a dazzling pale blue light, revealing the identity of the enemy. Otsutsuki Sujito, the wielder of the Tenseigan. Chapter 127, The Shadows Grasp, a deal for revenge. Faced with the relentless pressure from Madara, Otsutsuki Sujito dared not let his guard down for a moment. Izuna's Dujutsu was so powerful that it nearly caused him fatal harm, and now with the appearance of an even stronger sibling, he had no idea what strange abilities Madara might unleash. However, he soon realized that Madara didn't seem to display anything particularly extraordinary. Except for one thing. His opponent appeared to possess an incredibly impressive agility. Has only that little brat's power been enhanced? Before the thought could even fully formed in his mind, Madara delivered a powerful kick to his abdomen. What? Otsutsuki Sujito's face was one of disbelief. If it were just the awakening of ability-based techniques, that would be one thing, but why had even his basic ninjutsu and taijutsu grown so much stronger? Just a short while ago, during the beheading mission, the two brothers together couldn't even touch him. Bastard! Otsutsuki Sujito muttered as he gathered a green light sphere in the palm of his hand, his eyes burning with intense fury. As the self-proclaimed overseer of the ninja world, a great existence above all, he had always looked down on humanity from the perspective of someone in power. How far has technology advanced? Was war still ongoing? Could people truly trust one another, and so on? It seemed that the Hidden Moon Village clan had been playing a game called civilization. As long as everything went according to their desires, they were fine. But if something in the developmental process deviated from their expectations, they immediately attempted to delete the save. Yet, when these administrators confidently entered into the game, they soon realized that the world was no longer what they had once known. In simple terms, these players from the Hidden Moon Village couldn't even defeat the low-level monsters just after leaving the beginner village. Other problems Otsutsuki Sujito could still explain away using his unfamiliarity with ninja techniques. But the brothers, whom he had just defeated not long ago, had quickly evolved to the point where they now possessed the power to threaten him. The cruel reality shattered the last shred of hope in his heart. I will never forgive you. With a forceful grip, Sujito clenched the light sphere in his palm, not throwing it, but instead transforming it into a weapon resembling the Six Paths staff. In the blink of an eye, he appeared before Madara, the staff slicing through the air with a high-pitched screech as it came crashing down with tremendous force. He had expected to shatter that damned fan in one blow, but after a resounding bang, the fan Madara was holding remained completely intact. Furious to the core, Otsutsuki Sujito's hair and beard began to writhe, and his chakra surged uncontrollably from within. His left hand shot forward, aiming at Madara, who was retreating backward. A terrifying gravitational force immediately bound Madara in place. Then, Madara's body was forcefully pulled toward his enemy. Again with this cursed ability. Madara's eyes grew cold, and dark blue skeletal ribs suddenly emerged around him. Flesh quickly grew over the bones, his skin was covered, and he was eventually encased in a thick layer of Karasun armor. In that moment, facing the enemy who had killed his father, and driven by the hatred in his heart, Madara successfully triggered the evolution of his three-stage Susanoo. The Susanoo's sword materialized, cutting through the air with deadly precision, ignoring all of the enemy's flashy counterattacks. In one swift motion, it sliced through Otsutsuki Sujito, sending him flying through the air. While using gravity, the enemy couldn't activate repulsion at the same time, so Sujito had no way to avoid the blow. Hey, can you not hold on anymore? With a violent cough, Otsutsuki Sujito spat out a mouthful of blood, tumbling a few times on the ground, no longer showing the disdain he had earlier. With a violent cough, Otsutsuki Sujito spat out a mouthful of blood and rolled a few times on the ground. Gone was the earlier air of disdain, his appearance now reflected nothing but defeat. As he listened to the voices echoing in his mind, his eyes were filled with endless hatred, mixed with a trace of regret and fear. Struggling to lift his head, he gazed at Madara, whose eyes were filled with mockery and disdain. After a few moments of silence, Sujito spoke softly to himself. Fine, you can have my body, but you must promise me one thing. Hey, go ahead and tell me. Came the strange voice, continuing its coaxing. Hyuga Tenjin and Kyosuke Uchiha, no matter what, I want those two to die. This was the final wish of Otsutsuki Sujito. In truth, he had known for a long time that he would never be able to complete the task of wiping out the shinobi world. He couldn't even control a fraction of the power in the Land of Fire, how could he possibly take on the other 4 nations of similar size? Now, the only thing left for Otsutsuki Sujito was one desire, to find his son's murderers and at the very least drag those two to hell. Fine, I promise you. A bitter smile appeared on Sujito's lips, and with that, he relinquished all resistance, allowing a shadow-like existence to slowly consume his body. The last image to appear in his mind was of his son as a child, just learning to walk, babbling and calling out Daddy. Wait for me, Dad, I'll be there soon. By the time the shadow-like entity fully took control of his body, Otsutsuki Sujito's consciousness had been almost entirely devoured. No one knew that the leader of the Hidden Moon Village had now become nothing more than a soulless shell. As for the mysterious voice that had taken over his body, it was none other than the old silver coin, Black Zetsu, hidden within his shadow. What did it matter if it targeted the Hidden Moon Village? In the end, Otsutsuki Sujito would still have to rely on its power in crucial moments. With all its scheming and plotting, Black Zetsu surely understood such a simple truth. In the end, this moon-bound Otsutsuki was only seeking revenge for his son. The notion of fulfilling his ancestors' will was nothing but a farce. Once this truth was known, Sujito could no longer escape Black Zetsu's control. Its next plan could now proceed without any obstacles. Next, let me say a quick hello. Black Zetsu grinned mischievously. The pure dark energy surged toward the eyes. Sujito, who had once believed the Tenseigan would never evolve further, now watched in disbelief as it surged forward, like a race car with a full tank, rapidly completing its final stage of development in mere seconds. Feeling the eyes halt their evolution once again, Black Zetsu appeared somewhat regretful. Ultimately, it's a flawed product. With my power, I could only push it this far. By the way, the hidden power within Hamura is no less than that of his brother, Hagoromo. As Black Zetsu felt the explosive power within its host's body, a thought suddenly sprouted in its mind. The Sage of Six Paths brothers, in essence, did not differ greatly in power. The Six Paths planetary devastation, a technique that could only be used when the two brothers worked together. Could the Tenseigan be used to undo the seal placed on his mother? The Tenseigan was a power that had been activated only after Otsutsuki Hamura traveled to the moon, and Black Zetsu was unaware of its existence. Had it known earlier, it would have secretly targeted the Hyuga clan long ago, never allowing that family to grow as it had. Perhaps, I'll need to make a few adjustments to the plan. As for now, Black Zetsu originally intended to take the Tenseigan and leave, but then it suddenly wanted to test the true power of these eyes. Only in doing so could the Hyuga clan be forced to desire them at any cost. That way, the next phase of the plan could proceed more smoothly. Slowly, Black Zetsu made hand seals. A green chakra, fiery and intense, began to form around the body of Otsutsuki Sujito. The Tenseigan Chakra Mode. Activate. Chapter 128, Tenseigan Chakra Mode. The emerald green flame-like chakra cloak made everyone's expression change subtly. What a terrifying chakra! Hyuga Yateway's pupils shrank, and her eyes shimmered with boundless light. She had finally felt the power of the Tenseigan. If she felt this way, then Hyuga Tenjin, who wasn't far away, must have been affected even more. This is the power of our ancestors. I must find a way to obtain it. Driven by desire, he began charging toward his target. As for those who stood in his way, Hyuga Yateway would deal with them without hesitation. Those eyes are mine. No one else can have them. If Hyuga Tenjin was still some distance away from it, then Madara Uchiha was practically standing beside Black Zetsu. Interesting. Madara said with a smirk. Show me what you're capable of, descendant of Hamura. In the blink of an eye, Otsutsuki Sujito's figure disappeared. What seemed like ordinary movement was so fast it looked like teleportation, leaving everyone stunned. Before Madara could summon the initial form of his Susanoo, he suddenly felt an overwhelming force strike him, sending him flying like a bullet. Unbelievable speed and power. Kyosuke observed silently, analyzing the situation. He never expected that Otsutsuki Sujito would be able to activate the Tenseigan Chakra mode. Does this mean the enemy has already attained power surpassing the Kage level? No, obtaining power beyond the Kage level isn't so simple. Kyosuke shook his head, dismissing his own conclusion. If that were the case, the enemy would have already wiped out the Uchiha clan. I'll continue to observe. Seeing the clan leader injured, the nearby Uchiha members immediately abandoned their opponents and charged toward Otsutsuki Sujito. In an instant, he was surrounded by a barrage of shuriken and fireballs. Pathetic, Uchiha. Black Zetsu sneered and activated its repulsion force, instantly deflecting all the attacks. Originally, Black Zetsu had intended to find an opportunity to eliminate a few troublesome individuals. However, the enemy wasn't taking the bait, seemingly content to watch and observe the unfolding battle. Frustrated, Black Zetsu turned its focus back on the Uchiha clan members. The more it fought, the more its anger boiled. For so many years, it had wandered through the shinobi world like an orphan, desperately searching for a worthy successor. It could be said that most of the resentment in its heart was directed at the Uchiha clan. Had he shown more resilience, his mother would not have been trapped on the moon for so long. Gradually, Black Zetsu lost control over the force of its strikes, and in the blink of an eye, more than 10 members of the Uchiha clan were killed by its hand. Seeing this, Madara Uchiha gritted his teeth in agony, suppressing the searing pain. With the help of Izuna, who had been treated and regained some strength, they rushed forward together to engage the enemy. 2 Susanoo, 1 blue and 1 green, appeared simultaneously, showing no mercy as they relentlessly attacked, leaving the enemy no room to breathe. Too naive. Otsutsuki Sujito muttered, raising his hands horizontally. In an instant, the emerald green chakra cloak seemed to fade slightly. Then, a terrifying repulsive force erupted, and the two brothers were struck with devastating blows almost simultaneously. It's not time yet. Looking at Izuna, who was spewing blood from his mouth, Black Zetsu had to exert great effort to suppress the urge to kill. To guide Madara down the path it had arranged, simply awakening the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was not enough. First, it was necessary to plunge his spirit into the abyss. Otherwise, it would all be for nothing in the end. After waiting for thousands of years, it didn't mind waiting another 10 or 20. While thinking, a shadow approached Black Zetsu from behind without it noticing. I've got him. The newcomer was none other than Senju Tobirama of the Senju clan. Having successfully sneaked behind the enemy, Tobirama raised one hand to form a seal while pulling out a large number of explosive tags, tossing them onto Otsutsuki Sujito's body. Summoning jutsu, mutually multiplying explosive tags. After witnessing Kyosuke's Susanoo, Tobirama had been constantly thinking about a way to counter it. The attack power was manageable. Once he replicated the Flying Thunder God technique, avoiding the Susanoo's attacks wouldn't be difficult. The real problem, however, lies in how to break through Susanoo's defenses. Thus, the mutually multiplying explosion tag technique was brought into existence ahead of time. This technique was a knee-rank forbidden jutsu developed by Tobirama, utilizing pre-prepared explosion tags to execute an endless cycle of concentrated explosions. Infinite summoning, infinite explosions. No defensive ninjutsu could withstand its power. Boom. 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 As the series of explosions began, Tobirama secretly grinned, feeling an urge to howl at the sky. See? All you Uchiha, with all your flashy tricks, in the end, you still need me to clean up your mess. Poor Black Zetsu, who had just been preparing to deal with the Uchiha, was suddenly caught off guard by Tobirama's sneak attack from behind. As the elder who had dominated the ninja world for over 1,000 years, Black Zetsu never expected that today it would be outwitted by a mere teenager. How dare you humiliate me like this? Black Zetsu thought to himself. The emerald green chakra cloak swelled violently, attempting to use its jujutsu power to forcibly eliminate the explosive tag's effect. However, it had greatly underestimated the forbidden technique invented by Tobirama. The repulsive force would require 3 more seconds to recharge, during which time it had to endure tens of thousands of explosive tag attacks. As a seasoned 6th, Tobirama knew well how to seize the right moment. P.S. I really don't know what this means. If he was going to act, the enemy had to pay the price. However, since the mutually multiplying exploding tags had just been invented, Tobirama didn't have time, or the funds, to experiment with the technique. This was actually the first time he had used summoning on such a large scale. Thus, Tobirama quickly found an unexpected problem. The shockwaves from the explosions gradually enveloped him, the caster, as well. Now, he had only 2 choices, retreat or perish along with the enemy. If this were the battlefield of the Senju, perhaps he could have heroically sacrificed himself. But to sacrifice his life for the Uchiha, a group of evildoers. A joke. Without hesitation, Tobirama stepped out of the jutsu's range, causing the mutually multiplying explosion tag to immediately cease. Seeing this, Hyuga Tenjin, who had been waiting for the opportunity, finally found his chance. Relying on his Byakugan to see through the smoke, he charged in without hesitation. Soon, the sounds of fierce combat could be heard from within. In the sky, Kyosuke, who had been silently observing, finally came to a halt. He realized that Otsutsuki Sujito didn't seem as terrifying as he had imagined. The Tenseigan chakra mode is powerful, but those eyes are not entirely his own. Besides the attraction and repulsion, and the basic ability to fly, the enemy doesn't seem capable of using those two potent forbidden techniques.